Drinking Bros, presented by GhostBed.com. Yeah, welcome to Drinking Bros, kids. Wednesday afternoon, coming in hot. Timothy Kennedy is here today. How are you, boy?
I'm so good.
I can feel you coming through the microphone right now.
It's been a crazy couple of months.
Crazy couple of months. Yeah. You're back from Kabul. You were over there for a while. We had Nick Palmisano on.
What a gem.
Dude,
well, I mean, like, you talk about a good egg. Mm-hmm. And I'm not usually very generous with compliments, especially my friends.
Sure.
And as you know, you're a business partner with him.
Yeah.
We've had multiple things go up and down, highs and lows, but the most extraordinary circumstances made him rise to the occasion. And the stuff that he has done in the past couple of months.
Yep.
Indescribable.
Indescribable. And, I want to walk the audience through the timeline and let you get everything off your chest here, because we've stood up for you on the show about everything that has happened in Afghanistan. It has been a colossal fuck up of epic proportions.
Yeah.
And you decided to take it upon yourself to fly yourself over there and try to help out. Now, Nick Palmisano was on the show and he said, hey, I was here visiting Tim. We were doing some business ventures together. He took me out for one of the worst, most grueling workouts of my life. And then we get this call about what's happening in Afghanistan. Yep. And then you guys were on a flight in less than 36 hours.
Yeah, we were flying wheels up 31 hours later. Booked the flight about 14 hours after we had the call, once I could get the Department of State clearance. Mm-hmm. I'm still in the military in the National Guard.
Correct.
So there's things that I had to do to make sure that, having a security clearance, I had to talk to my security manager, and then I had to let people know that through my chain of command. So like the adulting thing of being an NCO, I had to do all of that stuff to ensure that I could book a flight and go over there and be in an official status with an NGO, not in the military capacity whatsoever. Like, as a citizen soldier in the National Guard, I had that opportunity because those are separate things: my civilian career and my military career.
Right.
A lot of people kind of convolute those two things, and they're very separate things. So I went over there as a volunteer nonprofit with a nonprofit.
And I'm glad you clarified that, because the way the media has portrayed it is Tim Kennedy is a fucking cowboy who went rogue.
When you say the media, you mean social media.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which, let's face it, social media is the media now. Whatever you see, as far as Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, it is more, I would say, important than like the New York Times. They don't get the type of views that social media does. Apologies to the failing New York Times, but
Lo siento.
Yeah, exactly.
Losers.
But it's true, right?
Yeah.
So when it's out there, as soon as it goes, no matter who said it and why, then everybody starts to pile on, right?
Yep.
And that's why when Nick called, I said, hey, do you want to come on and help explain this? Because what we're seeing now, I don't know the truth, and there's so many different posts about it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just hey, man, I'm going to go over there for the Tim Kennedy show, as that one general described it. It wasn't that whatsoever. You had gotten the proper clearance from everyone.
Not only from everyone, but I was not in charge in any capacity. I was not only just a volunteer, I was working, so when I got into Kabul, I was working directly for a joint personnel recovery agent. Mm-hmm. And that was my ground force commander. We were organized like a SOTIF. So we had a ground force commander in our SOTIF, which was Dan Stinson. So Dan operationally was controlling everything that was happening on the ground and forwarding the lists that were being approved through Department of Defense and Department of State, and then being forwarded from there to us on the ground as to which people had been vetted so we could move. We had the most arduous vetting process out of any organization. And then even once we got them out of Afghanistan, we then put them into a holding location for weeks so we could continue to vet them. But specifically to the timeline, fuck you guys that immediately assumed the worst. This was the worst stuff I've ever seen in my life. It's fucking horrible, man.
Yeah.
Like a level of desperation that's so indescribable that is so horrible. Like, you're a father. Could you imagine walking up to a wall where there's concertina wire, wall, marine, concertina wire, and then holding your infant child and thinking the best chance that this baby has is for me to try to clear 3 levels of concertina wire, hoping that somebody on the other side of this wall is going to catch this fucking baby.
Right.
That's the level of desperation. I'm gonna crawl through sewage for hours and hours and hours on end, hoping that maybe I'm gonna see that one person that I sent a signal or WhatsApp message to. And that's the level of hope and desperation that these people had. All the while, the 82nd and the Marines were doing the best that they possibly could in the most unforgivable environment that you can imagine. They were not provided the resources. They were not provided the tools. And in this colossal moment where these amazing people like Chad Robichaux and Sarah Verano and all of these amazing veteran organizations that stepped up, and I don't have a bad thing to say about any one of them because, man, they were there. It was really cool because I would see people on the airstrip in HKIA and be like, man, I haven't seen you in a few years.
Yeah.
It's good seeing you here. What are you doing here, man? And he's like, same thing you're doing. I was like, bro, let's go get it. And you couldn't stop for a second because you knew if you stopped for a second, that was a life that you could have saved. And that was weighing on you. So there was no eating. Kevin, who's a currently active agency guy, he lost 37 pounds in 10 days.
Jesus.
That is no sleep. That is no food. That is every time that he looked at the floor and like, maybe I can lay down for a second, or maybe I can go and recon another rat line. And like, that was the measurement. So when I got the call and I got there, and I finally landed in HKIA, I get off the plane. I walk down the stairs of an empty airplane that we had lines of people already manifested.
And how big is this airplane?
This airplane could, there were 212 seats and we put 330 people on it.
Jesus.
Yeah. It was a Kandahar airline that we had chartered, and the pilots wanted to get their families out.
Right.
And they were doing turnarounds because they had to fulfill their contract for us to put their families on the plane. Like, that's the level of desperation, because if we didn't have that carrot, the moment that they landed outside of Afghanistan, they would just walk away from their planes. So we could only use pilots and crew that had families in Afghanistan. Otherwise, the moment that they left Afghanistan, they're like, cool, yeah, sure, I'll do those other 5 flights. Nah, bro, I'm just gonna walk. And they just walk from the airplane. Like, where are you going, man?
Right.
Like, where are you going? Like, I'm not going back to Afghanistan.
Yeah, see you later.
Yeah, peace out, bro. So I step off the airplane. I landed in our host country where we're doing operations. I got about 2 hours on the ground where I got, as best as we could, a COP, which is like this operational picture, this combined operational picture of this is what it looks like. Here's Taliban checkpoints. Here's friendly. Here's foe. And okay, grab your body armor and your bag and go ahead and get on the plane. So I did a SATCOM check, made sure I had good comms, checked my like SAT tracker.
Correct.
Made sure that was on, got on the plane, flew in. I step off the plane and Sean, my boss on the ground, was like, all right, let's go. So I walk down the stairs, I get in his up-armored Land Cruiser, and we drive directly outside to the end of the wire, and we crawl underneath the wire, and we go recce the next one of the next rat lines for that night.
And what's the first thing you see when you crawled underneath there?
A Taliban sniper observation position.
Really?
Yeah.
And was there people outside at this point, outside the gates?
So the gates were so congested. The gates were also being controlled by the Taliban.
Yep.
So outside of every gate, and there were many gates. Abbey Gate was the big one where the bomb went off. We had Black Gate, you had Santa Cruz Gate, you had the North Gate, there were all these gates onto HKIA, and outside of each of those gates were multiple Taliban checkpoints. So when you were trying to bring SIV, green card, or American citizens onto HKIA, you had to smuggle them past the Taliban checkpoints and then get them onto the base. And you couldn't bring them through the gates, not because the 82nd or the Marines wouldn't allow them. It was just so congested. I think everyone saw the videos of people hanging off wheel wells. as planes were trying to take off.
Yeah, and you know, regarding that, so the media didn't show too many images. My guess is it would have looked horrific for the Biden administration. So here's what I had said while you were over there: I saw 3 images. I saw the plane taking off with the people hanging off the wheel wells and then falling. I believe 3 or 4 of them died once the wheels went up. I saw that image. That was horrific, and everybody was appalled. The second image I saw was the baby going over the barbed wire fence.
Yeah, most of them didn't make it over, by the way. You didn't see those images.
No. And,
So I'd say 1 out of 10.
And what happened?
They bled out in concertina wire.
Yeah, so because families were throwing them over, correct?
Yeah.
And
You saw these really beautiful pictures of babies being handed. Like that's the rarity. Like there were babies that were like a beach ball at a baseball game were being floated forward. And we're like, whose baby is this?
Yeah.
Where did this baby come from? You know, and there's like the parents are 4,000 people back. You know, like, now what do you do with this baby? Do you bring this baby in? This is not a vetted baby. This is also not a real orphan, because orphans have some protections that we're able to do things with when we know that they're an orphan. And this is like why it was so hurtful and so damaging when all of these trolls and these meme pages started to make these unfounded accusations about what was happening on the ground. Not only was it inaccurate, but it was damaging because we were still trying to do things. And we were trying to keep positive information so that it stayed current in the real media, not the social media.
Right.
Because as soon as we lost the impetus of where the genesis, the nucleus of everything was good and pure and right intentions and doing the right thing, as soon as we lost that, and it's not on everyone's minds, and it's not on every headline, and it's not on everyone's social media, and it's not hashtag save Afghanistan, it's not save the children, they were damaging the mission. And it made it harder for us because we didn't now, because of them, have the moral high ground because of their lies that were retweeted or shared or created a new meme page of the Tim Kennedy bus or whatever they were hashtagging, where they knew absolutely nothing, which was based in facts, and they were just looking for an instant gratification and attention, or whatever it is that on social media that people are looking for. But whatever trolls look for.
Sure.
Like, they were looking for that.
And by the way, this will lead me to the third image that I saw, which was yours on social media. Now, you were the first one that I saw who was actually on the ground, on the airstrip, taking a photo saying, here's how bad it is, right? Other people have criticized you for saying, Tim Kennedy's taking the most expensive selfie in the world. And I said, great, but that's his fucking life, and I know he's got a family and he's got multiple successful businesses back here. He would not be doing this for a fucking selfie, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah.
And that is the only way that I knew, and the outside world knew, how bad it really was, because we had only seen 2 images because the media was not publishing anything other than that. Therefore, when I saw it on your social media, to me, I realized how dire the situation was.
Yeah, you don't see a fucking mom holding her baby
Correct.
that's bleeding out. I have that photo because I fucking took it. I didn't post it because I was still trying to keep the mission first. And evidently, this is beyond anybody's imagination to think that somebody that has a big social media presence could actually be selfless. And I'm not saying like I'm being some hero here, but there was a clear mission, and there were people that were having me post things specifically, and they said, no, will you do this? I knew that I was going to get hammered.
Yeah.
But we were paying out of pocket. Dan Stinson, our ground force commander, he mortgaged his house to pay for the first 5 flights. He mortgaged his house. He and his wife in Virginia took their house and were like,
it's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the right thing to do. Chad Robichaux.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what a hero. Like, that guy. Selfless. He was the one. He was one of the very few people that when they call and ask me for something, like I'm going to take
Theodore
a long
Roosevelt
look.
once said,
a lot of people ask me for things.
the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, and spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best, if he wins, knows the thrills of high achievement, and if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat.
From Houston's Rice Hotel.
But Chad asks and says, "Hey, can you help me get my turp out?" And man,
I'm sure you were flooded with those text messages as well, like, because I know Dan was, and I know Drinking Bros inbox was full of them of like, "Hey, I need some help, I need some help, I need some help," and I was like, man, there are hundreds of these.
thousands.
Yes, well, I just the hundreds just for us. For you, I can't even imagine what it would be like. And then you get there, like you said, you go to the other side of the gate, and then you see how almost hopeless and helpless it is. Where do you begin to start to help at that point?
Yeah, same way you're gonna start eating an elephant, just a bite at a time. Like, what is the little thing that I can do to make the best impact? And Sean and Dan and Kevin and Dave and Nick, they were such marvelous leaders, and they had this big picture, and they knew, okay, tonight alone, in one night, first night on the ground, we set up 8 rat lines. So from the moment it got dark till the sun started coming up, we were running back-to-back smuggling lanes. We're not supposed to say smuggling, we're supposed to say shepherding, because
Sure.
that's the appropriate word.
Right.
Because we're talking in past tense, because we're not smuggling anymore, we're now shepherding. But then we were absolutely smuggling, because we're smuggling past the Taliban. In that first night, we did 8 separate rat lines through and past the Taliban.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
So a little bite.
Yeah.
Right? Go wreck you a line. Like, that's what Sean did. Tell me how we can get 100 people through a location right now. So I was
Retreat.
like, all right, no, that's Taliban LPOP position. This concertina wire is like 8 layers deep. Probably won't work here. Let's look at this gate. Oh, they welded it closed. I can't use it. Oh, they didn't weld this one.
Yeah.
Gotcha, motherfuckers.
Sean Matson had hit us up, and he said that the Taliban was welding all the gates together, and
Quiet down. Quiet down. Let's stay cool, people. Procedures, I need another computer up in the RTCC. I want everybody to alert your support teams. Wake up anybody you need, get them in here. Let's work the problem, people. Let's not make things worse by guessing.
Confirmed. We're seeing the same 13.
Can we review our status here, Si? Let's look at this thing from a standpoint of status. What have we got on the spacecraft that's good?
I'll get back to you, Gene. Gene, I'm wondering what the Grumman guys think about it.
We can't make any guarantees. We designed the LEM to land on the moon, not fire the engine out there for course correction.
Well, fortunately, we're not landing on the moon.
No.
I don't care what anything was designed to do. I care about what it can do.
and that's it was you had to find the right one, but good luck because you don't know if they're coming back.
Yeah, I didn't travel the blowtorch.
Yeah,
Would have been useful. didn't cover that in my COP, the combined operating picture.
yeah, you can't take that on a plane.
No.
Can't take that on a plane. So you get the first few hundred people back. And then when did it start to kick in for you about this isn't the Tim Kennedy show and everything else? Because I'll go off the reports that we had heard on social media, right? That there was a bus full of 300 plus.
Oh, man, that's a bad one.
It's a bad one. And they said that Tim Kennedy is fucking up this operation. These people were not supposed to come over. He did not clear them with us. He's doing some fucking cowboy shit by bringing over these 300 unchecked Afghans that weren't a part of the list that should have come over. What was the real story? Because I know for goddamn sure we're not getting it on social media or the real media.
So this is because we're still doing operations. Like I can't go into the bona fides process that we use to, but like, what are those like Da Vinci made them where you had to turn things in a very particular order and they had to be turned in the right order at the right moment and they all had to line up the right time. A cryptex?
Yeah, or Rubik's Cube in today's world.
Cryptex,
but,
yes.
Yeah,
Cryptex,
cryptex.
Yeah. The complexity of our bona fides, both near and far, and the vetting process for somebody to be at one of our pickup locations was so complex, nobody could be able to falsify who they were to be at the right place at the right time, with the right name, with the right paperwork. It's impossible. So once we got these buses loaded in multiple pickup locations, all throughout Kabul. And we brought them to a specific gate on HKIA. We had coordinated to bring them through that gate because on some of those buses, and again, I can't get into precise detail about who was on those buses because there were multiple government agencies that were giving us their names because some government agencies, believe it or not, via bureaucracy, had their hands tied. So they would go to an NGO and be like, hey man, can you get this guy out? This is who this person is. Here's their paperwork. It's approved, but we can't do it. Can you do it? Those people are on our buses. Christians on our buses, orphans on our buses, American citizens on our buses, both SIV applicants and SIV candidates on our buses. And those buses were vetted and pure. They're outside the gate. Mm-hmm. Then this is when sunrise is starting to happen. A different military organization goes and they wanted to clear everyone from that gate. So they started throwing flashbangs. They went out there with wooden sticks and they just started beating everyone there. What went from, I'll say, pure buses with vetted passengers to a contaminated bus happened in this chaos. Windows got shattered. People on the bus climbed out holding their babies because, how many people have been around a flashbang thrown inside of a bus window?
Yeah.
It's a bummer when you're holding a 19-month-old and a flashbang goes off inside of your bus, which is packed with 60 people. So as this starts happening, I'm going to say probably our first 4 buses were still 99% perfect.
Okay.
But we're still going to vet every person. We're still going to search every person. We're still going to bring everybody off that bus. We're going to pat them down. We're going to confirm their paperwork. And then before we put on a plane and fly them to yet another place where we're going to vet them for weeks at a time before we move them to hopefully their permanent home. And that is through the Department of State process. So there's no showboating here. There's no cowboying here. This is this regimented vetting process that for somebody to get to a bus and then to get in, and then it's an act through the legal channels of us moving people.
Real quick, who ordered the flashbangs and the sticks and who ordered that? Do you know?
So,
and are you allowed to say?
I'm not going to talk disparagingly about any military person because you have to understand the ground there at the time is pure chaos. It's pure anarchy. It's not war because war is horrible. War is the worst thing that 2 humans can do to each other. But this is something even worse. So I even if I had been the one saying this is how we're going to do it, and looking at that person from the outside, maybe not the best plan, but that's a plan.
It's a plan. But it's the wrong plan, and then does somebody
maybe not though? Because there were
suffer a consequence?
Yeah, there was 3,000 people that were packed around these buses, and they're trying to get on the buses. And those drivers, they took the dudes that were on the buses, and they were holding the doors closed, and they had all the men lined up on the windows, forcing people because people were trying to climb up on top of it, climb underneath it. All the videos or the one picture that you saw, people falling off of wheel wells of landing gear of aircraft. Well, that's happening on these buses. And
it looks like World War Z.
Oh man, it is World War Z. The ants trying to climb up and over the wall. That's what it felt like. So the buses start coming in one at a time after, this violence of getting the crowd back. And we get a bunch of buses in and we pull everyone off and we search everyone. We start confirming everyone's paperwork. We start confirming our list. And here's the bummer part. Government DOD was asking for our list. We couldn't share that list because some of the people on that bus were from government organizations that are way cooler than the person asking me for a list.
Right. And they're not supposed to be there.
They're supposed to be there, but this name of this agency person, I can't hand over to a DOD gate guard.
Got it. Okay. But it was okay for Joe Biden to hand over a list to the Taliban of who should and shouldn't be there.
Joe Biden is the president, and I am a volunteer working for a nonprofit. Right? I can't throw a tier 1 unit, tip of the spear unit that had me do something for them and be like, yeah, sure, here's the list. That's not really an option.
Right.
looking back, could I have circumvented that in some way, but like duplicating lists or, removing names off, but now we're moving to like ethical integrity issues where I still want to know 100% who's on there because I am ultimately going to be, or we, Save Our Allies, is responsible for the people that we're bringing. And we did the right thing. I want to know that name. I want it to be transparent. I want it to be visible. And I want to know that that person is tied to this Department of State authorization. And I put them on this plane to move them here because they're allowed to.
Right.
And all these other people like, oh, these brown Afghans, these guys are going to be terrorists. Is like, when a woman started giving birth on the plane flying out, and I was like, I need a doctor. And like 9 people stood up, and I was like, this is awkward. Yeah. I was like, hey, does anybody speak English? And the whole plane stood up. I was like, ooh,
yeah,
that's who these people are. We forgot who these people were. For 20 years, they fought with us. For
Right.
20 years, they were our doctors. For 20 years, they were our nurses, our PAs, our flight medics.
Your interpreters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but now because of the convenience or whatever talking point on social media, we won't be like, oh, this immigration thing. That's not what this is. This is the 1975 catastrophe of Vietnam in our generation's time, and how that was politically divisive. That's what we're allowing happen with this current conversation.
These are the people that helped you for 20 years in
20
the
years.
in the longest war in
American history.
American history. These are the people that helped you, and then overnight you're going to say, "We're done. We're out of here."
Yeah. And even crazier is they were like attacking. Not even crazier, equally crazy. The fact that you would attack another without even taking a moment to think about vetting finding the truth, and look
on what we were doing, and more importantly, why we were doing it, the strategy behind what we were
looking
doing.
for facts.
I've been asked by Secretary Cheney to do that this evening, and so if you will bear with me, we're going to go through a briefing. I apologize to the folks over here who won't be able to see the charts, but we're going to go through a complete briefing of the operation.
The organization's name is Save Our Allies. Right. Right. Like, this does not say Tim Kennedy Show.
This goes back to 7 August to 17 January. As you recall, we started our deployment on the 7th of August.
Not important on the ground. Sean
Basically,
would be like,
what we started out against was a couple of 100,000 Iraqis that were in the Kuwait theater of operation. I don't have to remind you all that we brought over initially defensive forces in the form of the 101st, the 82nd, the 24th Mechanized Infantry Division, the 3rd Armored Cavalry, and in essence we had them arrayed to the south behind the Saudi task force. Also there were Arab forces over here in this area arrayed in defensive positions, and that in essence is the way we started. In the middle of November, the decision was made to increase the force because by that time, huge numbers of Iraqi forces had flowed into the area, and generally in the disposition as they're shown right here, and therefore we increased the forces and built up more forces. I would tell you that at this time, we made a very deliberate decision to align all of those forces within the boundary looking north towards Kuwait, this being King Khalid Military City over here. So we aligned those forces so it very much looked like they were all aligned directly on the Iraqi positions. We also at that time had a very active naval presence out in the Gulf, and we made sure that everybody understood about that naval presence. One of the reasons why we did that is because it became very apparent to us early on that the Iraqis were quite concerned about an amphibious operation.
But it is no
across the
doubt.
shores.
I mean, with 90 aircraft, over 90 aircraft this weekend, 50 plus today, since the collapse of Afghanistan, it's been obvious, but President Xi has accelerated the military intimidation and as well as the psychological intimidation. They are blasting into Taiwan the fact that the United States did not defend adequately a 20-year ally in Afghanistan and walked away and surrendered the country. And that is what they're saying your fate will be as long as you stay aligned with the United States. So yeah, this is significant which has taken place. I think President Xi is likely moving up the I think what his major objective is, and you know, when it comes to Xi, you got to pay attention to what he says. And he said time and time again, we're going to resolve this issue with Taiwan. If it has to be by force, it will be by force, and we're not going to pass this problem on to the next generation. So it's likely, I think, it may be moving forward in terms of his intent to accomplish that. Not in the near term, Olympics next year, National Party Congress next year, and that's what they have every 5 years, where they likely extend him again in his tenure as the president. But yeah, this is getting to be a more dangerous situation.
You're saying invasion of Taiwan, which leads to an all-out war. How many casualties, no one can say. And what would the United States do at that point?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. I think he has three conditions that he's looking at. One, he has economic headwinds in the next 5 to 10 years. His economy is slowing down. He's got massive debt. His productivity is going down. And those are serious issues. And he's got huge democratic problems with his workforce. With one baby, only permitted in China for years. What that means, he's got 200 million people moving out of the workforce and into senior citizens to take care of over the next 10 years. Major issue for him. The other condition is that he knows that our allies, led by the United States, are retooling and upgutting their capabilities. But it's going to take a number of years for us to do that. So there's a window of
grandiosity.
And the last one is the one that you mentioned, Bill. The last condition is the United States. Will the United States come to Taiwan's assistance and actually defend Taiwan? That is a calculus which will influence his decision on whether to take action or not. That's just the facts of it.
And what do you think the answer is to that? You know, when the Defense Department says our commitment is rock solid, do you think it is?
You know, I'm just not sure. It has nothing to do with the Defense Department. It has to do with the decision maker. We just saw an awful strategic decision that led to the surrender of Afghanistan to a terrorist organization. And that decision is resident in one person, the President of the United States. So regardless of the Pentagon statements, and I appreciate those statements, and certainly they are helpful, it really comes down to President Xi's assessment of President Biden.
You're talking about an event that would lead to the next World War. Because now, General, the scenario you describe here, you force our Western European allies to take a side. You force our Southeast Asian allies to take a side. Australia, New Zealand, Korea, Japan.
No, there's no doubt about that. And then listen, there's been some good things done. President Trump started the Quad, the informal alliance in the region with Japan, Australia, India, and the United States. President Biden has strengthened that. Right now, as we speak, when all these aircraft are flying, we have 2 aircraft carriers in the region. The United Kingdom has an aircraft carrier, a new one, their only aircraft carrier, the Queen Elizabeth. And the Japanese have an amphibious helicopter carrier in the region. So we have presence, and that is also sending a signal, certainly, to the Chinese and particularly to their military leaders. But yes, this is going to be a crisis, I think, that is going to get worse before it
Wow,
gets
this is
better.
profound what you're saying here, General. We respect your views entirely. You know, but what we're describing here is the world going back to war at some point after 2022. I mean, that's profound. Xi is 68 years old, and you said at the beginning of this conversation, listen to what he says, and he has said repeatedly that this issue will be resolved.
He has a tendency to do what he says. But it may not lead to the all-out war that you're thinking of. What he could do is prop down on one of Taiwan's islands, which is closer to the mainland, with military capability. What are we going to do? Are we going to react to that or not? My reaction to that is to put military forces into Taiwan if he does that. He could blockade a major port. All smallest steps to break the resolve and will of Taiwan. He could go for what I call a quick kill. And that is massive air and missile attack going after the National Command Authority and the elites inside of Taiwan and force a surrender very quickly in 2 to 3 days. Or he could do what you're suggesting is an all-out attack. And now he does have enough amphibious ships he didn't have for a number of years, enough amphibious ships to conduct that invasion. He's built a lot of commercial carriers, not just the gray hulls of his Navy, like we do. When we move our troops overseas, we use more commercial carriers than we do Navy hulls. And he's got all of that now.
Well, everything that you warned us about in Afghanistan came true, so you are obviously obviously worth listening to. Also, congratulations to you and your Yankees.
Yeah, we're in for a fight. There's no doubt about it. We're going up to play the dreaded Boston Red Sox. God bless them. And we always play good baseball.
I was happy.
And congratulations on 25 years of Fox.
Right on.
Thank you. Well, thanks for being you're a big part of it.
I'm honored to be a part of
You're
it.
part of it. Thank
Are
you.
we?
Basically, that we had to face, and these were the real tough fighters that we were worried about.
Probably cost people their lives.
Right.
They did. And shame on them.
Yeah, because there's been a bunch of social media accounts who've posted about it, and they're either lying outright or they're retelling stories that somebody else had told them that were incorrect without fact checking them. And again, you would have been over there to take the most expensive selfie in the world, risking
I'm sorry.
your wife, kids, and
I shouldn't forget these fellows. That SF stands for Special Forces. We put Special Forces deep into the enemy territory. They went out on strategic reconnaissance for us, and they let us know what was going on out there, and they were the eyes that were out there, and very important that I not forget those folks. Next, please.
Why would you risk all of that to go back?
This then was the morning of the 24th.
That is very, very
Our plan initially had been to start over here in this area and do exactly what the Iraqis thought we were going to do, and that's take them on head-on into their most heavily defended area. Also, at the same time, we launched amphibious feints and naval gunfire in this area so that they continued to think that we were going to be attacking along this coast and therefore fix their forces in this position. Our hope was that by fixing the forces in this position and with this attack through here in this position, we would basically keep the forces here and they wouldn't know what was going on out in this area. And I believe we succeeded in that very well. At 4 o'clock in the morning, the Marines, the 1st Marine Division and the 2nd Marine Division launched attacks through the barrier system. They were accompanied by the 2nd, the Tiger Brigade, U.S. Army Tiger Brigade of the 2nd Armored Division. At the same time over here, 2 Saudi task forces also launched a penetration through this barrier. But while they were doing that, at 4 o'clock in the morning over here, the 6th French Armored Division, accompanied by a brigade of the 82nd Airborne, also launched an overland attack to their objective up in this area, Al Salman Airfield. And we were held up a little bit by the weather, but by 8 o'clock in the morning, the 101st Airborne Air Assault launched an air assault deep in the enemy territory to establish a forward operating base in this location right here. Let me talk about each one of those moves. First of all, the Saudis over here on the East Coast did a terrific job. They went up against a very, very tough barrier system. They breached the barrier very, very effectively. They moved out aggressively and continued their attack up the coast. I can't say enough about the 2 Marine divisions. If I use words like brilliant, it would really be an under-description of the absolutely superb job that they did in breaching the so-called impenetrable barrier. It was a classic, absolutely classic military breaching of a very, very tough minefield, barbed wire, fire trenches type barrier. They went through the first barrier like it was water. They went across into the 2nd barrier line, even though they were under artillery fire at the time. They continued to open up that breach, and then they brought both divisions streaming through that breach. Absolutely superb operation. A textbook, and I think it'll be studied for many, many years to come as the way to do it. I would also like to say that the French did an absolutely superb job of moving out rapidly to take their objective out here, and they were very, very successful, as was the 101st. And again, we still had the Special Forces located in this area. What we found was as soon as we breached these obstacles here and started bringing pressure, we started getting a large number of surrenders. And I think I talked to some of you all about that this evening when I briefed you on the evening of the 24th. We found we got a large number of surrenders. We also found that these forces right here were getting a large number of surrenders and were meeting with a great deal of success. We were worried about the weather. The weather, it turned out, was going to get pretty bad the next day, and we were worried about launching this air assault. And we also started to have a huge number of atrocities of really the most unspeakable type committed in downtown Kuwait City, to include reports that the desalinization plant had been destroyed. And when we heard that, we were quite concerned about what might be going on. Based upon that and the situation as it was developing, we made a decision that rather than wait the following morning to launch the remainder of these forces, that we would go ahead and launch those forces that afternoon. Next.
got you, but there is people that
So this
are
was a
there
situation
who are
you saw the
currently doing it for their
afternoon
own
of the
families outside
21st.
of
The
your
Marines
organization.
continue to
I
make
just wanna
great
that
progress
clear.
going through the
And
breach
everyone is trying to
in this
figure
area,
out,
and we're
which is
moving
why there's so
rapidly
many
north.
messages
The
coming
Saudi
in
task
over
force
and
on the
over and
East
over.
Coast was also moving rapidly to the north and making very, very good progress. We launched another Egyptian Arab force in this location and another Saudi force in this location, again to penetrate the barrier, but once again to make the enemy continue to think that we're doing exactly what he wanted us to do, and that's make a headlong assault into a very, very tough barrier system, a very, very tough mission for these folks here. But at the same time, what we did is continued to attack with the French. We continued, we launched an attack on the part of the entire 7th Corps where the 1st Infantry Division went through, breached an obstacle and minefield barrier here, established quite a large breach through which we passed the 1st British Armored Division. At the same time, we launched the 1st Armored Division, the 3rd Armored Division, and because of our deception plan and the way it worked, we didn't even have to worry about a barrier. We just went right around the enemy and were behind him in no time at all. And the 2nd Armored Cavalry Division.
All those different people were talking to different groups, you know, and they're like,
right.
And everybody's trying to do the right thing, and that's what I'm trying to say these days. Everybody, you know, from Pineapple Express to Save Our Allies, everybody was trying to do the right thing. How effective they were, there's varying degrees of that. You know, like we moved 12,000 people in 10 days. You know, we currently have 8,911 people in one of our humanitarian camps that we're moving to permanent homes. Like, as you and I are talking right now, we have those people there. The next closest group to us was under 500. So like if you took all groups combined and you multiplied them by 10, they still didn't move what we moved because we were doing so many things right.
Right.
And I'm saying we because I had very little to do with it. It was really like Sarah and Chad and Dan and Nick.
Well, but the other part about this is, and this is again what I told the audience, is you need a Tim Kennedy to go over there. Like it or not, everyone knows who you are, and they take it more seriously if a guy who is famous, who has money and everything else, is willing to go over there and help and fight to get these people out of there. It makes everybody take it seriously of like, oh shit, if Tim's here, I can be here and I can help out.
Yeah.
And
you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And even celebrities. Chris Pratt just posted on his Instagram a link to Save Our Allies in his...
He donated a bunch of money.
In his Instagram feed and just said, hey, don't look for old episodes of Parks and Rec or Guardians of the Galaxy. Go to Save Our Allies and help them out.
Cena is talking about hopping on here, like a whole bunch of A-list celebrities. They know how important this is, and like God bless them, and because they're trying to.
But
help.
that's what it takes.
That's
and it
exactly
takes,
what
it takes.
It takes
guys like you. It takes guys like Cena and Pratt and those guys. And like again, like it or not, you're the famous one right now who's currently still in the military, who has enough online following to actually make a difference, which is what all of this was so frustrating to me. It was like, oh, he keeps taking fucking pictures and everything else. Motherfucker, that's the only way we're figuring any of this out, is if somebody is on the ground that we know and trust, and we believe in, and they're able to get the information out to the world. Otherwise, we have no fucking idea what's going on there.
Yeah, the moment that we are done with this podcast, I need to go over to that corner and shoot a video because we just got assigned another humanitarian camp here in the United States in El Paso, and we have to find 20 volunteers in 7 days. So do you guys know any 20 people that can go work 2 weeks straight, 10-hour days that can go volunteer? And no.
I don't have any employees here that work that much, motherfucker. No,
but that has to happen right now. The moment we get done here, I have to post for 8 different camps, and we need about 90 volunteers in the next 2 weeks. So if anybody else knows an easier or faster way to get this done, or to get donations, or to get diapers, or to get baby formula, or to get volunteers, if anybody knows a better way to do it, let me know, because I surely don't want to be doing it on social media because I hate social media.
Yeah.
But we still have to do it.
Right. And the more public you are with it, unfortunately, especially when it comes to fundraising and collecting money or relief effort for all of this stuff, you have to put it out on social media. That way, everybody's like, all right, great.
Yeah.
I've seen it enough. Now I'll donate, and then I'll...
You and me, we privately financed the biggest and most successful
independent film, yeah,
independent
2016.
Film
yes. Ever, yeah.
Up to that point.
Yeah.
And we did it via social media. We raised the money via social media, and you made the largest independent film and what is the most successful independent film up to that moment.
Yeah. Of all of 2016, and everybody's like, how'd you do it? We went online and did it. We made a couple videos on Facebook and Instagram and everything else. Raised $1.2 million in, I think, 48 hours. So it is possible. However, you need social media.
Yeah.
That's where you come in of like, the people who are bashing you for posting on social media, I don't understand it. I just don't understand
I understand it because they want attention. That's what they want. Whether it's like the abused the redheaded stepchild that's like, oh, I'll even get negative attention if that's the attention that I get. That's what they're like on the internet. The trolls and the meme pages. They'll take anything for just a little bit of attention. And that is so gutless. That is so cowardly. You know, like if you thought some of the things were, I cost lives. You know, like
that's what one count said specifically. If I could remember which one it was, I would fucking light them up on air right now. But he had said that on his thing, and whoever this military meme page had a pretty big following. It was like, Tim Kennedy cost 334 lives on this bus, and now they had to dump the bus on the other side of the fence. I don't know if that's true or not true, but
we had to dump the bus.
Did you really?
Yeah.
And were they on it? Were 334 people on it? They were.
Well, we had 4 buses. So those 4 buses that we brought in, that we searched everybody, and then now we're confirming paperwork. DOD comes in and is like, hey, who's on this bus? Sean, my boss, is the ground force commander. He's like, I can tell you who's on this bus, but I can't really show you who's on this bus. And like, well, give us the manifest, give us the list. It's like, I can show you lists, but if you're going name by name, because Sean knew every name, and Sean's like, I can't give you every name. And we're like, oh, give it all to me, or we're going to take these buses out and dump them. And so we're like, okay, let's pump the brakes real fast, and let's bring everybody out and have them hold up their documentation. And if they're good, we'll put them back on the bus. If they're bad, you can do whatever you want with them, right? But like, what you're going to get is every single person on this bus, whether they're Christians or they're orphans or they're SIVs or they're green cards or they're American citizens. Imagine this. We had a military officer push a bus back out into Kabul off of HKIA and put American citizens back outside the wire. Like, if that doesn't fucking make your blood boil, that you took an American and you're like, good luck back out in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened. And all of us, and there was only 4 of us. There's 4 of us on the ground. Dave, Kevin, Sean, and I, like, we did everything right. And we did everything that we could. But it's still war. Yeah. Right? This is still HKIA in the largest evacuation in Afghanistan's history in a war of 20 years. This is not a NEO operation. This is NGOs and vets kind of coming together trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And that's what was happening. And so we don't control the airfield. The military does. So the military gets to say what happens. And if they're playing that scenario back in my head, and I don't know how many times I did it, could have there been another way? Maybe. But we also had another rat line that was kicking off minutes after that. So could I stay there and argue this against somebody that ultimately has authority to do whatever they want? No.
Yeah.
This is a losing battle. So I then went to the next thing that I had a chance to have success in. And so then went all the way to the bombing, like.
And describe that, because, as this was going on, this was happening, we were actually live, and it was going on in real time. When the first suicide bomber came, how close were you to that?
So we were on a C-17 on the runway, and we're loading, and we actually didn't know what it was, because Abbey Gate is 2,000 meters, so a mile and change. And
you obviously can't see that with your eyes. You're from the plane, right?
We saw a plume of dust.
Gotcha.
But we had 600 people on this plane. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And
look, because I saw the picture from Nick Palmisano, and that was shocking as well. And again, media didn't show me any of that. Nick did.
I texted that one.
Yeah.
I'll show you. I slept on the loading, so the ramp raises. There's no room for me or any of Sean's team. So the 4 of us slept on top of bags. So the rest of the people had floor. Like there's no floor left, and we end up, none of these people have ever been on a C-17 before. Sure.
们辛苦了。同志们好。同志们辛苦了。同志们好。
A bunch of Afghan citizens.
同志们好。
Like vetted lists, like Americans, like cool, 12,000 people, fuck yeah. 19,000 people, we got on a plane and left because we were then we were ineffective at that point. They weren't letting us move any more people. So like, as you're throwing stones at me, Sean, Kevin, Dave, and I would have died there. We would have worked ourselves to death until it was done, and would have never been done. So we'd have stayed there literally.
In the
forever.
northern part of North Korea, in a town called Haesan, which is on the border with China. I had loving parents and one older sister. Before I was even 10 years old, my father was sent to labor camp for engaging in illegal trading. Now, by illegal trading, he was selling clocks, sugar, rice, and later copper to feed us. In 2007, my sister and I decided to escape. She was 16 years old,
Egregious.
and I was 13 years old. I need you to understand what the word escape means in the context of North Korea. We are starving, and hunger means death in North Korea. So it was the only option for us. I didn't even understand the concept of escape, but I could see the lights from China at night. And I wondered, if I go where the light is, I might be able to find a bowl of rice. It's not like we had a grand plan or maps. We did not know anything what was going to happen. Imagine your apartment building caught fire. I mean, what would you do? Would you stay there to be burned? Or would you jump off out of the window and see what happens? That's what we did. We jumped out of the house inside the fire. North Korea is unimaginable. It's very hard for me when people ask me what it feels like to live there. To be honest, I tell you, you can't even imagine it. The words in any language can't describe.
This is a satellite picture showing North Korea at night compared to neighbors. This is the Amno River, which serves as a part of the border between North Korea and China. As you can see, the river can be very narrow at certain points, allowing North Koreans to secretly cross. But many dying. Sometimes I saw dead bodies floating down the river. I can't reveal many details how I left North Korea, but I only can say that during dark years of the famine, I was sent to China to live with distant relatives. But I only thought that I would be separated from my family for a short time. I could have never imagined that it would take 14 years to live together. In China, it was hard living as a young girl without my family. I had no ideas what life was going to be like as North Korean refugees. But I soon learned it's not only extremely difficult, it's also very dangerous. Since North Korean refugees are considered in China as illegal migrants. So I was living in a constant fear that my identity could be revealed and I'd be repatriated to a horrible fate back in North Korea. One day, my worst nightmare came true when I was caught by the Chinese police and brought to the police station for interrogation. Someone had accused me of being North Korean, so they tested my Chinese language abilities and asked me tons of questions. I was so scared. I thought my heart was going to explode. If anything seemed unnatural, I could be imprisoned and repatriated. I thought my life was over. But I managed to control all the emotions inside me and answer the questions. After they finished questioning me, one officer said to another, "This was a false report. She's not North Korean." And they let me go. It was a miracle. Some North Koreans in China seek asylum in foreign embassies, but many can be caught by the Chinese police and repatriated. This group was so lucky. Even though they were caught, they were eventually released after heavy international pressure. These North Koreans were not so lucky. Every year, countless North Koreans are caught in China and repatriated to North Korea, where they can be tortured, imprisoned, or publicly executed. Even though I was really fortunate to get out, but many other North Koreans have not been so lucky. It's tragic that North Koreans have to hide their identities and struggle so hard just to survive. Even after learning a new language and getting a job, their whole world can be turned upside down in an instant.
Zai.
That's why after 10 years of hiding my identity, I decided to risk going to South Korea. And I started a new life yet again. Settling down in South Korea was a lot more challenging than I had expected. English was so important in South Korea, so I had to start learning my third language. Also, I realized there was a wide gap between North and South. We are all Korean, but inside we have become very different due to 67 years of division. I even went through an identity crisis. Am I South Korean or North Korean? Where am I from? Who am I? Sadly, there was no country I could proudly call
Did you
my
ever
own.
notice how men always leave the toilet seat up?
Even though adjusting
That's
to
the
life in
joke.
South Korea was not easy, but I made a plan. I started studying for
God.
Look at that flag,
university
though.
entrance exam.
Yeah, but look at how many people are physically packed inside this plane. I mean, it's...
If you can see any space, so the person...
You can't. And
Yeah.
I can't imagine this thing lifting off. And then what happens after that? Because, like, look, I just got off a flight 2 hours
This
ago.
is in the air.
Oh, so this is in the air
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
And how far is this flight with this many people?
Oh man, this is a bummer. So it would have been a 3.5 hour flight, But because of the number of flights that had taken off from HKIA that day, like this is the very end, right? We had to be out by the 31st. So this is on what, the 29th or the 28th? The night of the 28th, the morning of the 29th. All of the planes, there were only a few places that were allowed to land. A C-17 can fly anywhere, right? But I have 600 Afghanistan people on this plane. Like, there's only places I'm allowed to land.
Sure.
And every one of those places, it was like stacked up. Because once that plane lands, you have to get all those people out. You have to then put them like through COVID testing. You have to put them all through. So that doesn't happen fast. We're talking like a 12-hour process of moving people off of this plane. It's a humanitarian crisis, right? This just doesn't happen like this.
Yes.
So every one of the places that we're landing, it's like a 10-hour wait for us to land. The only way that we were ultimately able to land is because we had like 4 medical emergencies on that flight, and they bumped us to the front. We would have been up there for, I think, 13 hours is what they're saying.
Oh my God.
And no food.
Yeah.
We're
no
like
water.
So we had stacks with these pallets of water, and you can't walk through the crowd because there's no space because you're going to step on a sleeping baby. So it would take like the water and be like, if you want to see, have you ever seen somebody from Afghanistan try to do a jumping jack? Then you should also try to see them catch a bottle of water in the air as they're like under exposure for the past 2 weeks trying to get onto the base. It was a mess. So it's like,
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure.
It's a mess.
And we can joke about it because, look, you saved all these people, but, they're not used to having bottled water, I'm assuming, thrown at them. And then I've got a dumb question here, but, looking at that photo, where do you use the restroom? Where do 600 people use the restroom on a 10, 13-hour flight?
So the 4 of us that were on the ramp, there's like these bathrooms, things that you put onto you, and you like pull this little curtain that are on the wall. Well, we couldn't get to those. And so we had, anticipating this, we had Gatorade bottles that we had packed into our bags empty because we knew it was going to be somewhere between a 5 to 15-hour flight. And we had already ran out of food. Obviously, Kevin losing 37 pounds in 10 days. Like, there's no food left on our bodies or bags. But we did have empty Gatorade bottles that we planned to pee in because they got the big mouths.
Yeah, of course.
Easy. You just get the whole thing in there.
Look, those are
the
the best. Yeah, that's the go-to.
Yep.
Those are the go-to. But
this would not work.
No.
No, that's to be a disaster. That's pee all over you.
But 600 people, how does that work for 600 people?
They're dehydrated. When I say exposure, like they are near death. They have been fighting to get onto HKIA since Taliban started moving in. So they had probably been in Kabul for a week to 2 weeks with no food, whatever water they could scrounge. Desperation is a different level here. So when they get onto these planes, imagine having you just flew, and you hear the babies in the back because they get to board. They're like usually in the middle of the plane because they get to board before everybody else, especially in Southwest.
Yeah.
So they're usually all in one area, and like half the babies are crying. Well, those are nice, well-fed babies that have slept.
Yeah.
There's not a baby on that flight that cried one time.
That's crazy.
5 hours, 600 people, mostly women and children. That is how tired they are. That is how exhausted and emotionally expired they are. Babies are sunburnt because they've been exposed in the sun. They haven't, like mom has no more milk in her. There's no food. There's no water.
Because most of them, I heard, and you can clarify for this. For me. Most of them were outside of the airport without shade, everything else. Just thousands of them for 2 weeks.
Yep.
Up to 2 weeks, hoping to get on one of these flights to get out.
Yep.
And they were exposed to sun the entire time. There was no shade. There was no anything.
Nope.
I did see troops handing out water and things like that.
I mean, everywhere that they could, the troops, man, you want to be proud of some soldiers. The soldiers on HKIA, the Marines and American military army that were there. Amazing. The stuff that they did, like, it is... every one of those put those guys and gals in for awards. Absolutely just selfless, courageous acts of heroism. Everywhere that you looked. You see little photos of these soldiers or Marines grabbing these babies, or that stunning photo of that beautiful young Marine that got blown up at the gate holding that baby.
Yeah.
Like that. That's the same day she got blown up. The photo of that beautiful Marine holding that baby, she died a few hours later at the same gate that she was working right there. Like these boys and girls, men and women, they're men and women.
Yeah.
At those gates, just heroes.
So are they all gone now? Are they all out of there?
Oh yeah. The last, there's actually a photo, like a night vision one that's pretty canned and irritating of.
I saw it from the Biden one of like, hey, we got everybody out of here.
Here's the last.
War's over, everybody go home. That type of thing. Was that a legitimate photo?
Yeah,
was.
That was them leaving.
Okay.
Last American soldier stepping off of Afghanistan.
Got it. And then dumb question here, because I had asked this to the Afghan who was on. He didn't have a response for it. He simply didn't know. If you're the Taliban, and you want these people to stay, because clearly they want these people to stay inside the country for some reason, then I can't understand if they want to leave, let them leave. Why does the Taliban want them to stay? One,
real easy answer.
Okay.
There's no one else to run their power. So the good guys were the guys doing work.
Gotcha.
You want your toilet to flush, Taliban leader? Well, you need that plumber. And that plumber has worked for the Americans for the past 15 years. That's how he knows how to do the plumbing stuff. Oh, you want to be able to fly the helicopters that we left there? Well, that's going to have to be one of the pilots that was trained by the Americans. So you don't want him to leave because there's no one else to show you how to fly a Black Hawk. We tried to just we tried to destroy everything, but we didn't. Right? They got $84 billion worth of American military stuff, and some of that stuff they need people to show them how it works.
Yeah, it's just too advanced, right?
It's not that. Yeah, it's. Even starting like an LMTV, like a normal person that hops in their car with their little key fob and they press the start button, and then you get into an LMTV and you're like, man, there's a lot of switches here. Which one do I turn first?
Yeah.
So they don't want these people to leave because they're the ones that make Afghanistan work. Like, how are you going to land a plane at HKIA when all of the air traffic controllers left?
Makes sense. Because the other question I had that he had no answer for was, why not just blow up the airstrip? Why not just take out the airport? If you want all those people to stay, wouldn't the most effective way to be to blow up the airstrip so that they can't get in or out? And then you really got them trapped, because at that point you would have to use helicopters to get in. You could only grab 4 or 5 people at a time and get them out. Why didn't they do that?
Yeah, another great question. I don't know why you called it a stupid question, but it's a really easy answer. The Taliban, they learned from the Russians, and they learned from the French, they learned from the British that patience works. And you as an American, as we are watching, man, they wanted, and they got exactly what they wanted, was us to be humiliated, running with our tail between our legs, trying to get out of that country, as they have surrounded the airport. They got every single social media talking point for the next 20 years of how they kicked Americans out of Afghanistan. They had to wait an extra 4 days to be able to control the country entirely. But had they dropped one bomb on that airport with us there, it would have been a different situation, right? Like now it's a NEO operation. Now the Biden administration's like, okay, this is a non-combatant emergency evacuation operation. So we're going to bring in the entire 82nd. We're going to control Kabul and we're going to move our people out because of the Taliban. They just had to wait, show a little bit of battlefield patience, and then they got everything that they wanted, and then they got pallets of money from us. So again, they're not stupid.
Yeah.
They're evil.
When you say it, it's very, very smart. Yeah, because those images go around the world.
Forever.
It makes America look weak. This was their Vietnam. Congratulations, we won. Not only did we beat Russia in the 80s, now we beat the United States for the last 20 years. Both countries left with the tails between their legs. Yep. And fuck you if you want to try to come back here and control our country. So what happens next? Now that the Taliban are in control, Biden's clearly not going to touch this. I've heard varying reports that Russia is still there, but and China, but their embassies are protected by the Taliban.
They are. That's correct. Yep.
So that is correct.
Yep.
Okay. And they want them there for money.
So they're Afghanistan is a mineral-rich country, and a lot of the stuff that China uses in phones and tablets is found in Afghanistan. It's also a very strategically located country, even though it's landlocked. You know, when you start going around the circle of what Afghanistan is, where to the left, you have Iran, you have Pakistan to the southeast, and then you have Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, and it's a short flight there into Israel. You can kind of like hopscotch into Europe pretty effectively. You can hit into southern Middle East, you know, to all of the oil-rich countries. Like it is a strategic location, and as China continues to move west, that is their next best place to start legitimizing infrastructure to have them have a foothold in
that country. So that's going to continue because I didn't see any panic from China or Russia when this all happened. They stayed.
Yeah. So
they were fine, and it appears that they weren't threatened. Nobody was having suicide bombers show up to their embassies or anything else.
No.
So clearly there is some financial give and take there where it's like, hey, you let us stay, let us mine your minerals and help with the money. I know Russia needs the oil in particular, and then, you know, we'll look the other way on the other bullshit that you do.
China's so dime, the four ways that you wage war: diplomatic, information, military, and economic. China doesn't use the M of dime yet.
Yeah.
So they use diplomatic, information, and economic. And the way that they use the economic and information is via infrastructure. So they build airports, and they build docks, and they build and they moor canals, and they build everything that you need to run the country at like 0.001 interest.
Yeah.
You know, and they're lending these countries billions of dollars because they have it, and it costs them, you know, cents on the dollar to be able to build this stuff. But then they permanently own that. They own those airstrips. They own those docks. Well, not in Afghanistan because it's landlocked, but they own that infrastructure. So then they are permanently based and rooted in that place. So China, I don't know who it was that was telling you this. Before we were out, we were
Yeah.
Hey, you're Russian, aren't you? You know, like that's not a Ukrainian plane.
Yeah,
you're not Ukrainian.
It's the Spider-Man
You're
name.
Russian. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we're the same person.
And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about in perfect English, and you're like, oh my god, this is happening right now. Like the Russians, like. The bed is still warm from the spouse who died and the new one comes in type thing.
Right.
Like the bed was still warm. We hadn't even left. We hadn't even died yet. We're still trying to get out. And Russia was already on HKaya. We had, I hope we can tell the story someday of like Russians trying to get black boxes out of American aircraft. While we were still on HKaya. And some people saw the Russians, and then some other really elite people come over, and they have like a little face-off. Like, the details of this it's stuff of movies. And this is Russians actively trying to both sabotage and collect on American military information that was on HKaya before we had even left.
Oh, man.
So it's like, holy crap, this is like happening right now.
The Rock will be starring in that next November.
Probably.
Yeah, probably out around Thanksgiving. Yeah. During this past week, by the way, I don't know if you've had a chance to watch some of the Senate hearings with Milley and those guys. Look, he said we made a mistake. Obviously, didn't really go further than that. Looking back at it now, obviously, because it's still going on. Our troops are gone, but there's still, you know, like you said, plenty of people over there. Why weren't they more prepared?
So good question. Prepared to do the evacuation?
Just prepared for everything that was going to happen. I understand that we needed to get our troops out of there someday, right? You know, when Biden said, "Hey, we're not going to be in a forever war here," I think we all agreed with that, right?
Cool. Sounds good.
Yes.
Bipartisan.
No matter what side you're on, I think we all agreed with that. But why did we have to tell the enemy and the other side the day we were leaving and everything else? Why didn't we just evacuate everyone and then just leave a postcard on the table, kind of like a
later loser.
Yeah, hey, your dad went to get a pack of smokes and never came back type of thing. Why did we have to tell them anything whatsoever?
Upper Decker. I would have left some Upper Deckers.
Yes.
In every toilet.
Yes. And then great, find it later, but I'm already gone. And then we've gotten all of our people out of there. That's the biggest mystery about all of this that I simply cannot figure out.
I mean, there was a date that was a talking point for them to get out, and they held to that date. And I don't know. It's above me to know what created that date and why they had to stay to that date. If I were to assume that there was some leverage on the Taliban's part, being like, if you don't leave by this date, which is the agreed upon date that we, kind of did this demilitarized timeline where I'm not going to really mess with you guys while you withdraw. If you stick to those dates, then, we're not, because there were no suicide bombers, except for the Abbey Gate, which is, you could say ISIS-K or Taliban, it's still one of the same.
Sure.
It's different feathers from the same bird, but it's still like the same assholes. Truly. Like these are not different organizations. Like the Taliban knows everybody in ISIS-K, and they used to be Taliban or vice versa.
Right.
They're just like, that's my cousin Joe, So that is my assumption, but I don't know.
Because I
know that's not a good answer.
It is what it is. It's, again...
Organizations that is working through FEMA, that is working through Department of Homeland Security, that is working through Department of State, Department of Defense, that are coordinating with all these different military bases from Fort Bliss to McCoy, and coordinating not just the movement of people from these foreign bases to these American bases in this vetted way, or then taking these people and moving them to their permanent homes somewhere in the world or the United States. A lot of great patriotic people in these groups. No, they're not all perfect. Like these are humans. Mm-hmm. These are humans that have lived under extraordinary circumstances for a while. But most of these people going into communities, that community is going to be blessed to have them there. So where do we go next? I think this is a 3 to 5 year problem before we're like, okay, we got these people to permanent homes in a dignified way where they can start a new life. I need things to move. So in Afghanistan, we'll say this population of just 50,000, so it's easy to work with.
Sure.
Then we have 10,000 people that are in these interim camps that we're taking and then moving into permanent homes. But this 10,000 humanitarian interim camp is full. So I can't move any other people out of Afghanistan until I move some of these people out of here through the vetting process of the Department of State. And the bureaucracy of big government organizations are not very efficient, so that's a conversation for another day.
And even thinking about it seems like it would take forever.
Who are you?
Think about Nick Palmisano, his beautiful wife, Suze. How long did it take her
Dad boy.
to get through her immigration status as a Brit? To come years.
Yeah.
Right? So are we going to hold these people in this interim base for years while we wait for their status? Maybe. You know, like, we're going to do whatever.
I was raised to do one thing.
The legal thing to do. I'm not going to smuggle people.
But I've got nothing to fight for.
Community center and be like, hey, here's an Afghani for you.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Have fun.
Yeah.
Nothing will stand in our way. I will finish what you started.
There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it. The dark side. A Jedi.
We could just go home right now, or maybe we could stick around for just one more drink. Oh yeah.
And your pictures are the only things that we actually see. The media's done most of this shit. How do you sleep every night?
Last night was my wife's and my 15-year wedding anniversary. It's the reason that I'm not overseas. It's the reason that Chad, in his benevolence and grace and wisdom, said, "Homeboy, you're staying home for your 15th wedding anniversary." Wife and I, I've been in the military for 17 years. She's been here for 15 of it. So I've not been there for a lot of them. And this one's big. You know, we've had some tough times. So Chad's like, so I was home. And last night, I shit you not, was the first night that I slept at night. So without picking up my phone, because it's reverse hours, right? Like right now it's 1 a.m. in Kabul. So we're doing operations right now. And then the Jock, which opens and is during like the kind of 8 to 6 time frame. If I'm going to do coordinations with them, that's going to be for me between 7 p.m. and 4 a.m. So operationally we're flopped, but coordination wise we're the same. So if I'm talking to people in the Jock, I have to be up in the middle of the night. So there hasn't been a night since this started, August 10th, that I haven't slept at night.
I believe it. Because when Nick was here, he was telling me the schedule and everything else, and I'm like, he was like, bro, you're lucky to catch a couple hours total throughout the day, but most of it you're not. What did your wife say about you going over there? I asked Nick the same question, because I know Suze. I've met your wife once. She's very strong.
She's fierce.
Yes, and she takes care of your entire life the same way as my wife does. Yeah. What was that conversation like with her, knowing exactly what was going on, because she's able to watch the news the same way as everybody else?
One of our best friends was already on HKIA, and we, for the week leading up to that, had been hosting his wife and children at our home, playing, and Ginger seeing one of her friends bawling endlessly as she heaven forbid picks up her phone and looks and like, oh great, another place just fell to the Taliban and my husband's over here, and this guy is like hero, that indescribable, just like what a selfless person, and like that's going on for a week and the whole time I keep flicking, because so many organizations were like, hey, can you come do this for me? Can you come do this op for us? Like, hey, grab your body armor and night vision. Let's go, bro. And I kept, even though how bad, like the compulsion to go and do something was so powerful. The reason why and the end state were never the right reason until Chad called me. And when Chad called me, it was, here's the mission, here's the reason, here's what we're doing, here's how we're doing it above water, and here's how we're doing it legally. And then going through my chain of command, making sure that I was allowed to. All of that was, this kind of chaos crescendo of a moment finally where it's like, hey, honey, I'm going to book a flight to Afghanistan. I don't know how long I'm going to be gone. Everything's going to be fine. And she knows who I am. Yeah. I've been the same person. And I love this line where don't let the reason that you fall in love with somebody be the reason that you hate them, ever become the reason that you hate them. Like like your wife fell in love with you because of who you were. And even though you guys grow and evolve and change as people, like if she ever looks back and is like, man, I hate him for what he is now, is the thing that I fell in love with him for, like, this is a problem. And my wife married me 2 years into being in special operations. I was already a top-ranked fighter on the planet. Like, she knew what she was getting into. So now 17 years later, when this is happening, she knew this was gonna, like, she knows.
But even though she knows, 17 years is a long time. Has she ever just been like, Tim, when is enough? Like, or is it ever going to be enough?
It's never going to be enough. And for evil, talk to our security manager. Let's talk to Department of State. Okay, let's get you through the STEPS program.
How can I hold?
Make sure that your counterterrorism is up to date. Let's make sure that your cyber awareness is up to date. Like all of the horrible things that you as a soldier don't want to do.
Since we have the floor next in the debate,
Here's what we're planning. Here's what we're going to be doing. Please help facilitate. We need a plane, or we're leaving a plane, or here's the next manifesto. There's like this big information dump that would happen at these same.
And why, if I might ask, are we not concentrating the nation's attention on Wilmington? Why, instead, are we reading in the Herald?
Social media to the administration, and the only thing that they're trying to do is save people's lives and stop criminals from coming into the United States. And all they get is shit on.
All they get is shit on and very little pay. I mean, for real.
Yeah. They speak multiple languages.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yep.
All of them do. Most of them have degrees. Like these are very sought after people. And the only reason that they're there is because of this thing.
That's it.
That's it.
And it's so fucking hot. Like, I really can't tell you. I mean, my God, down there, it's the hottest place out there. They're in,
like the Del Rio.
30 pounds of gear.
That's lava. You say that's water, but that water feels like lava. It is so horrible, and it's so dry, and everybody has diseases, and the cartel all the while is trying to specifically target Border Patrol and DPS Rangers to murder them, while they're smuggling people and guns and drugs, but like, cool, go ahead and shit on the only people that are standing between us and them.
Yeah.
Not when I say them, I'm not talking the immigrants.
No, not at all.
Because this country is made of immigrants.
Yeah.
And nobody's talking about immigrants. We're talking about the criminals that are trying to infuse themselves into that same large portion of people. And there's probably a broken process of the of our immigration policies that could be changed. But right now, the laws are there for a reason, and a reason that a country is sovereign is because of their sovereign borders. And the people that are holding the sovereignty of this beautiful nation are the people on those borders. So let's take care of the immigrants and look at policy reform for immigration while we support Border Patrol.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Is there a middle line there?
Crazy, right?
Mind's blown.
Lastly here.
That's a buff dude on that book.
Yeah, it
Who's
is.
that guy?
It is. We still rolling, by the way? We are, but it crashed. Yeah, as soon as he started talking about big tech, it went down.
Imagine that.
Yeah, I know. We have backups for all of it, so we'll re-upload it tonight for YouTube, but exactly. Yeah, crazy.
Ossify.
My biggest question to you is, because you've been over there for so long, looking back at it, there's been a lot of military and obviously ex-military who said, why were we over there in the first place? Do you look back at the last 20 years and question the same thing?
No. Nope. There's like, this is like a no regrets thing,
right?
Which would also be cool.
Yeah,
Okay,
right. No regrets.
No regrets.
Yeah.
I have this cool metaphor told to me by my good friend Af Ariana, who is a 7th Group Sergeant Major right now. And wherever you are, Af, I love you. And I asked him that same question. Like, because, he got blown up in Afghanistan. We both lost countless friends. I got blown up in 2008. In Mike Goebel, one of the bravest men I've ever served with. I went there with him, and he has subsequently died. And I was like, did this matter? And he very wisely said, okay, imagine being an oncologist, a doctor taking care of a patient with cancer. And for 20 years, you do everything in your power to save this person's life and keep back the cancer. And for 20 years, this person prospers. For 20 years, this person builds and creates. And for 20 years, they lead and they teach. And for 20 years, he's not pushing gays off roofs or setting people on fire or decapitating them or, cutting off their hands for stealing or stoning women in the street for adultery. For 20 years, this doctor keeps this person alive. And then at the end of 20 years, that patient expires. Does that mean that the sacrifice that doctor made for this patient over 20 years, all of his sweat and all of his sacrifice and all of the suffering that he made for this one patient, did that mean that mattered? Of course it mattered, right? For 20 years, there was peace and prosperity. For 20 years, there were women shop owners. And now there's an entire generation of girls that can read. Yeah. In a place that they're not allowed, because when I was there, they were riding by on scooters and throwing acid on little girls trying to go to school. But here we are with 20 years of stability. So did it matter? Absolutely. Does it matter? It still matters, and that doctor's sacrifice and the military's work that they did there for 20 years mattered. So yeah, it matters.
It's a great way to look at it, and I haven't heard it worded like that. My final question before we get to the drink and brew of the week is, what happens now? Does it return to that land that you walked into before you guys got there? Is it going to be that bad? Do you believe the Taliban when they say, hey, we're going to get better, we're going to look at the way we treat women differently, all of the things that they've put out in the media? Do you believe any of it? And where do you think Afghanistan as a country goes for the next 20 years now that we're not there?
Yeah, so the Taliban are gangsters. They're human, despicable creatures. I don't even want to use the word human because they're just despicable creatures. The executions are back. The hangings are back. The amputations are back. The stoning in the streets are back. It's all back. You're not seeing footage of it because everybody, they shut down cell towers so that people couldn't communicate with groups like us. They literally shut down cellular networks so the people there have no way to connect with the people outside of there. Sounds pretty like China or...
Yeah, it's real goddamn close. Yeah.
So the Taliban is going to always Taliban. There's no changing the Taliban besides what they are, which is the Taliban. They're not a political organization. They're not a movement. They are thugs and gangsters that are brutal and violent and disgusting and despicable and that share no values with anything that you and I appreciate, like freedom, virtue, or giving anyone equal opportunity for success. Gender, sexuality, all of those things, they matter to them. They are horrible.
And so you think it will return to that eventually?
Oh, it is to that.
Oh, already?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we left on the 31st, and today is the 28th. Is today the 28th?
Yes.
Oh, it's the 29th.
Yeah.
It's the 29th. So we are now 29 days into that. No, it happened the day we left.
And it's just back. That's it.
Yeah. Yahtzee! We're back. So the kind of broader answer to the micro of Afghanistan and the Taliban returning to what they are, the mission continues.
Who has heard the poem called The Snake?
Numerous groups still trying to get people out, but it didn't end on the 31st.
So I have it. Does anybody want to hear it again? You sure? Are you sure?
The only way that it's going to be accomplished is there's people like you and people
Okay. So let's dedicate this to General Kelly, the Border Patrol, and the ICE agents for doing such an incredible job.
It sucks to hear
Right?
There's a little bit you can do.
You know, I mean,
This was written by Al Wilson a long time ago. And I thought of it having to do with our borders and people coming in. And we know what we're going to have. We're going to have problems. We have to very, very carefully vet. We have to be smart. We have to be vigilant. So here it is, the snake. It's called The Snake. On her way to work one morning, down the path along the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor, half-frozen snake. His pretty colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. Poor thing, she cried, I'll take you in, and I'll take care of you. The border. Take me in, O tender woman.
Save our allies.
Take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, sighed the vicious snake.
Selfless, marvelous, astonishing.
She wrapped him up all cozy in a comforter of silk and laid him by her fireside with some honey and some milk. She hurried home from work that night, and as soon as she arrived, she found that pretty snake she'd taken in had been revived. Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, sighed that vicious snake. She clutched him to her bosom. You're so beautiful, she cried. But if I hadn't brought you in by now, oh heavens, you would have died. She stroked his pretty skin again and kissed him and held him tight. But instead of saying thank you, that snake gave her a vicious bite.
This is the Drinking Bros podcast. Good night, everyone.
What up, Whiskey Ginger
Take
fans?
me in, O
Welcome
tender
back to the
woman.
show. If this is your first time joining
Take
the show,
me
welcome
in,
to the
for
show. We got a
heaven's
good one.
sake. Take me
Please like
in,
it, subscribe, leave a
O
comment
tender
for now.
woman,
Go.
sighed the vicious
Post every
snake.
single Friday. We
I
haven't
have
missed
saved
anything. We
you,
don't miss.
cried the
This week, my
woman.
guest is Chrissy
And
Dean.
you've
Chrissy
bitten
Diaz.
me,
Chrissy
heavens
Steph,
why?
one half of the Hey Babe
You
pod.
know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die.
Wild. Almost everything that comes out of our mouths is nonsense, and it's the most. What up, Whiskey Ginger fans? Welcome.
Because you knew if you stopped for a second, that was a life. Their human just gone through this. Here's it there. Sounds pretty like China or
yeah. It's real goddamn close. Yeah.
So the Taliban is going to always Taliban. There's no changing the Taliban made for this patient over 20 years. All the sweat and all the sacrifice and all the suffering that he made for this one patient. Did that mean that mattered? Of course it mattered. Right? For 20 years, there was peace and prosperity. For 20 years, there were women shop owners. And now there's an...
Tim, thanks for inviting us into your home, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Yeah, we did a podcast, like I said, I think it was 3 years ago or so, but it was remote, and it was just as I was getting started, getting my feet wet, so hopefully this goes a little better on my end anyways.
Yeah, I have a hard time. I'm not a big podcast listener, but I don't, if I'm listening to somebody that like a Jocko or a Joe.
Sure, yeah.
And they're like, the person that they're having on their podcast is remote. I'm like, meh.
It's different, man. It's different. Like we've tried to do a lot more live conversations, and it's different. It's better. The dynamic's different. The conversation goes better. You can read each other. We get like that anyways with being online. You can't see the nuances and the tone or the inflection of people's voices. So it's hard to know where people are coming from.
Yeah, I was on a Zoom call, and a bunch of people were wearing masks on the call in whatever
on the call. Okay, makes
well, I mean,
sense.
I think they were in their office building. It was like a government.
Okay. Yeah, got it.
So like, I'm not going to throw stones. Like, I don't know what the situation was. It might be the policy for the city that they work for, whatever it was. But I mean, the deviation from like an in-person conversation where, if you're a jerk or you're being passive aggressive, first of all, I can identify, I can read it, and then I can like punish you, for being a prick.
Sure.
Where like there's a delta between in-person conversation and a remote virtual conversation. And then there's another one where like 3/4 of your face is covered.
Definitely.
I'm like, we might as well just text message, because there's no sarcasm. There's no conveyance of any clever wit. I have no idea what you're saying right now, but I think I want to kill you.
Right. Is that your default?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's like everybody's trying to kill me unless you prove otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good move, especially this day and age.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to this day, the Mujahideen still can't get me. So, I'm doing something right.
Yeah. I mean, you basically tempted them, right? And
no, they started it.
Well, I know, but you were like, okay, yeah, bring it on, right?
Well, I didn't like walk into a bear cave.
Yes.
And I was like, well, I guess I did because I went there first. And then I killed a bunch of terrorists. And then I came back here. But it's not like I came back here and then I was like, ha, 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 you guys can't get me.
Right.
They were actively recruiting local ISIS to find somebody to kill me or to attack my family.
Here.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't go out and was like, hey, here I am. Come and try and find me. Like, they started it. So then when they did that, I was like, I picked up and called Fox News and told them that they could send anybody they want, but I'm going to kill them all.
Right.
And they just can't ever get them back,
Yeah. Well, I think that's a pretty credible threat coming from you.
Yeah.
Did somebody try to break into your house not too long ago?
It was a couple of years ago. But
was it like just random or was it targeted?
It was kind of both.
Okay.
So one landscaper talked to another landscaper, and that landscaper told this other landscaper that in this house there was a bunch of guns and money.
But they didn't know who you were?
They didn't know who I was.
Okay.
No. So as it like got to the felon friend of the landscaper, they, in like the game of telephone, it's like, hey, his name is so-and-so. And by the time it finally gets around, a whole bunch of
it was Jim Schmemedy or
something.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's information that's been, like important information that's been omitted from this conversation. So by the time it got to said professional burglar, who, and when you're a professional burglar, it's not like you're the smartest guy in the world.
Yeah, I can imagine.
There's life choices that have been made that have put you on a trajectory to the position that you're in, which is like the bottom feeder of society.
Yeah, because sometimes when you hear professional burglar, I'm thinking like Ocean's 11 or Italian Job, but it's probably not like that.
No. Like, this is like a kind of drug addict that drives this really crappy beat up car that parked directly in front of my house, which was like the first thing that set off the first motion sensor before the cameras even kicked on, was like, there's a car stopped in front of your house. Because you can set up cameras where, like, if a car pattern-wise drives in front of your house, numerous times, it'll actually alert you. So there's some really cool software out there these days. So one of the things that we have was like, if your car stops in front of my house for a period of time, it's like, because there's not a stop sign. There's no reason.
There's no reason you would stop here.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like a car parked at your house at 3:49 a.m. It's like, curious, and then it's like movement by rear back door, and it's nice. Open up the camera, and there's like a dude lifting up the mat and looking underneath the flower pot, and it's like,
and you were here?
Yeah. Well, different house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was like, the balls on this guy.
Yeah.
But
or not, like just the stupidity. Yeah.
So it ended up that he had just heard that there's a bunch of money and guns in this house and didn't know who I was, never Googled anything. So, he was doing all the right stuff to try and get in here, but he was missing all of the indicators. When we say professional burglar, you're like, if I think a professional were going to walk up to a house and is like, these windows have a shatterproof, entry-proof film on them installed by 3M, because I can see that in the corner. Curious.
Yeah, that wouldn't be on a typical average house.
Yeah, like this home is protected by so-and-so security company, and then you like look up and there's a different security system on the exterior of the house. Is that redundant security? Also, maybe not the house to hit. I walk up to like this massive oak door with ornate metal that makes it, batter ram proof nearly.
Uh-huh.
And you look at this door and you're like, I mean, at some point,
Yeah, something would go
something
off.
should click.
Yeah.
But in like the cost versus gain analysis in these criminals' brains, they still see dollar signs, right?
Yeah, they're
You know, like-
clouded by that.
Yeah, the salesman that like sees the potential. You're working on a car dealership lot, and somebody walks in wearing a Rolex, nice boots. Like, how much time are you going to spend on there before you realize that this guy is waiting for his girlfriend to get off work across the street, and he's just walking, taking calls.
Right.
But you're still like focused.
Mhm.
It's the same blindness. So after he hit every exterior door, he starts going to windows, and he went window, and the next window was going to be my son's window, who was 3.5 at the time. So it was like window, gun to the back of the head. If you move an inch, I'm going to canoe your brain, and then I'll have to clean my lawn. I think that's actually what I said to him.
That would scare me.
Yeah, I've never murdered anyone on my lawn before.
The first for everything, I suppose.
No, this was still part of the conversation.
Oh, you've said that. You said that.
No, I
too.
told this to him.
Okay, got it.
Like, I've never murdered anybody on my lawn before, but I'm fully down to do that. So I want you to lay down. Do you have any guns, any weapons? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah.
So it was a
The authorities came, took care of business.
No, man. So that was a bummer.
Really?
Yeah. There was a shooting downtown Austin at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And Travis County had moved the call from Austin Dispatch to Travis County Dispatch, and then Travis County Dispatch to the region call center. So then I was talking to a Williamson County dispatcher who was putting it back to the call center, that was then sending it back to Travis County, then it was sending back to APD because everybody was overwhelmed kind of at the time.
Right, they had this sort of thing
officer-involved shooting.
Sure.
So like all resources, which I get.
Yeah.
So it went from there's an armed person trying to break into my home to a trespassing at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so I'm on the lawn with this guy for like 30 minutes. And finally, hey dude, I'm gonna cut you loose.
Really?
Yeah. Like, you're gonna take a walk.
Holy
If I
cow.
see you here again, I'm gonna keep your taser, which you had on you. Kind of weird, bro. The duct tape, which you also had. Seriously weird. And this 1980s flashlight. You know the mag ones that are like
the
a big like
silver, yeah, sure.
And so yeah, I cut him loose. Yeah, he
That's
got
a-
arrested
that's
like minutes
That's
later.
his lucky day.
Yeah.
I mean, on multiple different fronts.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. You know, I was thinking about like what I want to talk. I mean, there's so much we can talk about, but I've always been really curious. You know, you have so many things going on, and when we get done with this conversation, I know you're going somewhere else, and I'm always curious. Like, what is it that propels you? What is it that drives you? Because you're an intense guy. Obviously, you know what you're talking about. You've been immersed in this world for as long as I'm sure you've been alive. We were talking about that martial arts at 6 years old. What is it that drives you?
Oh man, can we go dark early?
As soon as you want.
Yeah. So
I'm not going to tell you no after the story you just told me. So whatever you want to talk about.
So I've done a bunch of terrible things, and war is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And by no means am I saying the greater good makes those things that we have done in war. I mean, even like the most righteous shooting on the planet, where that is a terrorist. He just tried to blow up this whole entire line of people delivering food.
Mm-hmm.
And then he jumps out from the bushes with his AK and shoots up that lead vehicle that are Doctors Without Borders, and then I shoot that guy. Even as justified as that sounds from his side, that's just another man that's trying to protect the values.
His ideology.
Yeah.
Sure.
And there's nothing worse than taking another human's life like that. I think anybody could do. And I've done that my whole entire adult life, like from 9/11 when I was 21 years old until today. That's all I've ever done. It's all I've ever known. Like that picture behind you, that's my task force when we killed Zarqawi in 2006. Like that's from me being in Afghanistan, which I got blown up 2 times. I was in gunfights for 3 days at a time. It's like, this is all I've ever done and known. And it has to be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have to have done these things, like for my sanity's sake. I can't sleep at night.
Of course.
Without thinking that and believing that I've been doing the right things for the right purpose, for the right reason. And I go back to the kind of the founding documents of this country, and I read, sentences like, all men are created equal. And I'm like, yeah, I believe that. I believe that to the core. And I know that we have not ever attained that, where all people start on the same level and that all people are given the same opportunities equally at the same portion.
Of course.
But
sure.
I think this country has tried harder than anyone ever to make that dream be realized. So I focus on that dream and I say, I need that dream to be realized, or everything that I've ever done is for naught. Right? I look at my kids, I look at my daughters and I say, like, if she wants to be an astronaut or a Navy SEAL and she's capable and they don't have to lower the standards, then she should be able to do that, whatever they want to do. That again is that dream, all created equal, all genders, all races, all religions, like name it, equal. So that's the thing that propels me is this purpose of all of these things would be for naught.
Right. Is there anything that you've seen, with what you do in your line of work and government and the direction of politics and life and culture and society where you've actually questioned, is what I'm doing still the right thing? Is it for naught? Have you ever questioned that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, every day.
How do you deal with that? How do you wrestle with that?
I mean, some really weird things where I would be in a country in North Africa, and this was like 8 years ago.
Okay.
And I went back last year, and the younger brother, like the 9 years younger brother that was just like a 5-year-old kid at the time, is now doing the same thing that his dickhead brother was doing when I was there last time. And now I'm like, did I cause this?
A vacuum or a...
Yeah, like, or like because I sent his brother to jail, essentially.
Right.
Did I then radicalize the younger brother? Like, is this an immediate causation? Not because correlation's causation,
but an escalation of some sorts into this.
Am I to blame for this?
Yeah.
If I go to a bomb maker's house and I hit that bomb maker's house and we find all the bomb making material and maybe we shoot the bomb maker, but that whole entire village, maybe that guy was providing the funds that fed that whole entire village. Maybe, right?
Possibly.
Maybe like every wedding has been paid for by the Taliban, and the Taliban was paying that guy to support that village, and that's how they operate.
Right.
So when I come in there and I remove, without a doubt, an evil person that is killing people that believe in freedom, the secondary and tertiary effects of that are this ripple, like butterfly effect, like how many things in these second and third order effects are negatively impacted by the things that I do. And there's no way, if you go down the rabbit hole thinking about those things.
Yeah, well, I can't imagine.
Bro, but then when you see it firsthand and you go back and you're like, hello, little brother. Man, you look like your big brother. Why are you doing this?
I think it's easy for somebody like myself or most of the people listening to just say, yeah, that's the right, you did the right thing. Because we only see right and wrong. We see it from this outside circumstances. We don't have any real consequences of your actions, but you take somebody like yourself who's deeply immersed in it, and it starts to round out that conversation. You start looking at it a little different.
It's one of the things I love about podcasts is the subtlety and nuance in conversation, right? So I think when people look at soldiers and they see black and white, right? Like I got orders and I did the right thing or I did the wrong thing, or like they followed the orders they didn't, right? Like, but then you look at the Nazis and you're like, oh, wait, those guys were just following orders.
Yeah.
I mean, does that mean it's okay to be black and white? No. If we say that they're just following orders, we're automatically condemning them. But then is it okay if our soldiers do that? What if those are just orders? But what if the perspective of the fascists at the time that were stuck in this vacuum, they had no other choice. And by no means am I rationalizing what the Nazis did. They all should burn in hell.
Right. Well, you had that show, the show, and you dedicated a lot of your life towards
to hunting Nazis.
Flushing this
Clearly,
stuff out.
I don't like them.
Right.
But we miss the nuance, the subtlety in especially war. Like war is not black and white. I mean, it is not even shades of gray. I mean, it is like this murky darkness that is indescribable. And soldiers see those things. And these aren't just, guys with great haircuts and broad shoulders that go in and just do the thing and, march on for justice. They know firsthand, unfortunately, the consequence of their decisions. And it's a tough thing to have to face.
Yeah, and I imagine, like you said, you're wrestling with it every day. You're thinking, am I doing the right thing? Am I still doing the right thing? And then you say these guys, like the Nazis, for example, they didn't have a choice, and then it's easy for me to say, well, sure, they did. You just do right. But then you think, okay, I could very easily be that that guy that was in 1930s, 1940s, German young man trying to raise a family. That could very easily be me.
Yeah.
But it seems like we have a hard time learning the lessons and then applying them for any sustained period of time. Like, we might learn the lessons of war, or how dangerous it is, or destructive or violent that it is, and we can remember that for a couple of years, and it's like, oh yeah, that's the past. That doesn't apply today.
Yeah, I don't know. We're so short-sighted. There's instances where I'll bring up both the Holocaust, and I'll get this quizzical look on a Generation Z or a millennial's face. Like the Holocaust,
right,
where they killed like 12 million people in genocide, specifically about ethnicity.
You know what we're talking about here, right? Yeah.
Is that like
really
what happened in like Holland?
Are you serious?
Yeah, all the time.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Do you think this is part of your? I mean, I know you've got the school going on, or you're starting the school. We talked a little bit about that. I'm really curious about your decision to, because it seems like there's multiple components of it. There might be a school, and then there's a boys component of it, if I understand correctly. Yep. Tell me about that. Is that part of the reasoning why you wanted to get involved this way with education?
Yeah. So a Green Beret is a force multiplier, like unconventional warfare, guerrilla warfare. You take 4 of us, 12 of us, and you drop us behind enemy lines with 200-300 insurgents. Mm-hmm. We teach them leadership. We teach them government. We teach them how to conduct guerrilla operations through unconventional warfare.
What the fuck did you just fucking say about me? You little bitch. I'll have you know, I graduated top of my class in the Navy SEALs. I have been involved in numerous secret raids on Al-Qaeda. And I have over 300 confirmed kills. I am trained in guerrilla warfare. And I'm the top sniper in the entire U.S. Armed Forces. You are nothing to me but just another target. I will wipe you the fuck out with precision the likes of which has never been seen before on this earth. Mark my fucking words. You think you can get away with saying that shit to me? Over the internet? Think again, fucker. As we speak, I am contacting my secret network of spies across the USA, and your IP is being traced right now. So you better prepare for the storm, maggot. The storm that wipes out the pathetic little thing you call your life. You're fucking dead, kid. I can be anywhere, anytime. And I can kill you in over 700 ways. And that's just with my bare hands. Not only am I extensively trained in unarmed combat, but I have access to the entire arsenal of the United States Marine Corps, and I will use it to its full extent to wipe your miserable ass off the face of the continent, you little shit. If only you could have known what unholy retribution your little clever comment was about to bring down upon you. Maybe you would have held your fucking tongue, but you couldn't. You didn't. And now, you're paying the price, you goddamn idiot. I will shit fury all over you, and you will drown in it.
And ultimately, that group that we're working with, by with them through, by their side, with them in their actions, and all success is through their own wishes to see freedom realized. And so we have like the 3 A's: advise, assist, and accompany. So we'll advise them on how to do things. We'll assist them in what they should be doing them, and then we accompany them. Like I'm fighting right beside them as we run in to fight, fascism, socialism, authoritarianism, all of the isms that happen all over the globe.
Sure, yeah.
And so as a force multiplier, when I was overseas and I was seeing the things that were happening here at home, I'm like, man, could I be more impactful taking the same formula, the thing that I've been trained to do by the government, and do that here, right? Can I go and give the same tools and the same leadership to Americans as I have been abroad? And that realization, like, I think we've been losing the narrative, the battle for what is right, what is just, what is ethical, what does integrity look like? When I look at politicians right now, I know we have been losing on both sides.
Sure.
Like, I'm like, left side, bunch of idiots. Right side, bunch of idiots. In the middle, there's nobody there. So how do we start, like, if the Titanic was heading towards that iceberg, how early did they just have to change the heading one degree?
Just one little small degree.
And they would have missed the whole entire thing. But they would have had to start it early enough, right?
Sure.
And I think I believe education's been failing us. We are not preparing the next generation for what's coming. And so you got to get them early. You got to start young. So as a force multiplier, the school and the Young Men's Mentoring Program both fall under Apogee. So Apogee Cedar Park is going to be the school, the physical school that I'm opening here.
And that'll be here. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, 3 miles from where we're sitting right now.
Awesome.
And I mean, big, massive building. You know, it'll be entry-proof windows, and it's going to be so cool. Like Green Berets sitting around desks as like these learners, these heroes are taking their education into their own hands. There's no teachers in this building.
Right. I was talking with Matt, and he was telling me a little bit about that, but explain the way that the learning is done.
You got any lawyers in your family?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So most law schools do Socratic education.
Okay.
So there's a question that's posed, and that question, when you go to answer that question, you answer that question with another question.
Right.
If in law, if I ask a question that is directing towards an answer, that's leading a witness, right? So you have to be able to ask questions, but you have to have incredible understanding of the topic.
There has to be a destination that you're trying to navigate towards, right?
That you have to guide.
Right.
So
which is kind of like the podcast, right? It's like, hey, here's what I want to talk
Yep.
about, but I'm asking questions to get there.
So the role of in most people's minds, the teachers or the educators, they're guides. So what we're doing is I'm taking masters of a craft. I mean, true professionals whether it's be, I don't want an academic that went to school for engineering and then has taught engineering. I want somebody that built a bridge and knows how to weld.
Right.
Come in here and show us if this group, this pod, the studio of 6 to 8 year olds want to put a new monkey bar on our playscape out there, and they are going to do it themselves. You can't teach them. You can't tell them what to do. You can only guide them
to figure it out.
And how to so like from how strong, what kind of metal are we going to be using? How long are the monkey bars? Structurally, what are the connectors? Like insurance-wise, liability-wise, all of these things, 6-year-olds are going to figure out.
That's cool.
But not once is that engineer going to go in there and be like, this is what you do. Let me give you he's going to have to guide them. He's going to have to show them.
In the heart of the Holy See, in the home of Christianity, the seed of power is in danger. There's a foe of 1,000 swords. They've been abandoned by the Lord. The fall from grace will pave their path to damnation. Then the 189 in the service of heaven, they're protecting the holy line. It was 1527. Give their lives on the steps to heaven. Thy will be done. For the grace, for the might of the Lord, for the home of
Let's go play. Let's go create. Let's go build. Let's destroy. And so even on standardized testing, and we have been doing this, when I say we, a bunch of different schools from Montessori to Acton, all of them have taken different variations of the similar approach. All of them perform. I'm not talking like a little bit better on standardized testing. I'm talking like
really
insanely better. You can't even compare them. When you look at like a middle school kid that graduated from a public school or even a private traditional school, and then you look at the Montessori's and Actons, it's not even fair.
Really?
Yeah. Kids launching businesses at 15. Full-blown entrepreneurs going to the city being like, I need a business license. So like, you're 15. Like,
and
that changes what?
Right.
That's your problem. That's not my problem.
Right.
You know, like, well, you're not old enough to sign it. Like, again, that's a you problem. That's not a me problem. I have legitimate business, and here's actually my P&L that I've done for the past 2 years since I'm 13.
Yeah, that's
But now I'm
interesting.
15, and I'd like to go official.
That's interesting. You said before we hit record, you were saying, you know, you're dealing with some of the red tape and all the bureaucracy and everything you're dealing with. So talk to me about that component. Because, and I said, I'm like, look, I don't think the school system wants you to be doing this.
No.
So talk to me about that.
Well, government doesn't want small business. They don't, first and foremost. When they look at the Amazons and the Walmarts and the Home Depots, and they're like, do you know what we're going to do? We're going to shut down every small shop on the planet.
But you guys.
And we're also going to incentivize successful
attack, a war it promises to fight till the end. The Air Force is on standby. The country is on alert. SOS calls are being sent out. Allies are being informed. The situation is very sensitive. At least 56 Chinese jets breached Taiwan's airspace on Monday night. 56. This was by far the biggest incursion carried out by China, and it follows 3 days of
The country's president, Tsai Ing-wen, has even penned down a warning to China. In an essay for the Foreign Affairs magazine, she has written, "They should remember that if Taiwan were to fall, the consequences would be catastrophic for regional peace and the democratic alliance system. It would signal that in today's global contest of values, authoritarianism has the upper hand over democracy." She added that while Taiwan did not see confrontation,
You should have acted. They're already here.
the question is,
The Elder Scrolls told of their return.
Taipei isn't powerless.
Their defeat was merely a delay. To the time after Oblivion opened, when the Sons of Skyrim would spill their own blood. But no one wanted to believe they even existed. And when the truth finally dawned, it dawns in fire. But there's one they fear. In their tongue, he's Dovahkiin, Dragonborn.
They're all stationed near Taiwan's southern coast in solidarity with Taiwan.
You don't know firsthand.
Back in their respective countries, they say their support won't stall.
Our hero claims a warrior's heart. I tell you, the Dragonborn come with a voice wielding power of the ancient Lord.
Every person that wanted to go and vote for free healthcare, go and talk to somebody that gets free healthcare from the government.
Yeah, well, I can tell you even personally, I have my VA benefits, but I go to a private practice physician.
Yeah.
Because I pay to do that because it's better what I have to go through to
It's
jump
horrible.
through. It's horrible.
It's horrible.
It is. Agreed.
For the
I'm
darkness
in like a 2-year process,
Right.
of just like figuring out what happened when I got blown up 12 years ago. You know, like,
yeah, and then trying to get benefits for that and make sure you're taken care of physically and mentally.
like we don't say nightmare like, oh, it's a lot of scheduling problems and kind of an inconvenience. Like, it's a nightmare. Go do a sleep study with the VA.
I've never done that. I don't want. That doesn't sound even remotely or even so one of the things I've heard you say in the past talking about the military is how much we're struggling to find young men who qualify, which is really interesting because when I joined the military when I was 18, I mean, we just did like 10 or 15 push-ups or something, run a mile, maybe 15 minutes. The bar was so low. I don't know, frankly, I don't know what it is right now, but it can't be any higher.
It's not higher.
It seems so strange to me that we're having a hard time finding qualified soldiers and warriors for different branches.
So are we more obese or less obese than we were in 1999?
More, sure.
Okay. Are there more instances of diabetes, especially childhood diabetes, in 99 or currently in 2021?
I imagine there are now.
There are absolutely more. Do you think that academically we are having kids that are performing better or worse than we were in 1999?
It's an end to the evil of all Skyrim's foes. Beware, beware, the Dragonborn comes. I tell you, the Dragonborn comes.
1994. Man, it's been a pretty cool year. I can go to school. They're gonna college. They're gonna get a salary. I'm gonna come out
by dying for his country.
A great job that they're gonna set me up for. Now
you want it?
They see veterans walking around
by making the other poor dumb bastard die for his country.
They came for him one winter's night.
All this stuff you've heard about America not wanting to fight, wanting to stay out of the war. There's a lot of horse dung. Americans traditionally love to fight. All real Americans love the sting of battle.
Eligible kids because they're fatter.
Right. When you were kids,
they're not as smart.
Yep.
You all admired the champion marble shooter, the fastest runner, big league ball players, the toughest boxer.
Yeah, well, I don't want to do that. That looks dangerous.
Americans love a winner.
Wait, even if I just drive a truck,
and will not tolerate a loser.
Call of Duty or whatever.
All day long.
Americans play to win all the time. I wouldn't give a hoot in hell for a man who lost. And
is
laugh.
That part of your? So you've got the.
That's why Americans have never lost and will never lose a war.
Separate component, which is the boys.
Because the very thought of losing.
And so is that? Do you see that
is hateful
being
to America.
A recruitment source? Is that why you're doing it? Like, how does that?
No.
Blend
it's not
together?
Recruitment.
An
what
army
we'll find, and this is by no means the motivation.
It lives, eats, sleeps, fights as a team. This individuality stuff is a bunch of crap.
I have zero interest in that.
The bilious bastards who wrote that stuff about individuality for the Saturday Evening Post don't know anything more about real battle than they do about fornicating.
And businessmen and soldiers.
Now we have
special operations.
The finest food and equipment.
Sergeant Major Matt Smith. He spent 25 years.
The best spirit
working for
and the best men in the world.
Elite units on the planet, even outside of the Green Berets.
You know,
even like really cooler.
My God, I actually pity those poor bastards we're going up against. By God, I do.
Myself.
We're not just going to shoot the bastards.
And Matt Bordeaux, as you know.
We're going to cut out their living guts and use them to grease the treads of our tanks. We're going to murder those lousy Hun bastards by the bushel.
Or how to balance a checkbook.
We say easy, and it is easy.
Some of you boys,
increasingly less.
I know, are wondering,
even know how to, like you said,
whether or not you'll chicken out under fire. Don't worry about it.
Crazy.
It is crazy.
It's crazy.
I can assure you
the initial goal
that
was
you
they
will
were
all
gonna
do
be
your
done with
duty.
Boys in high school ages. We're having young men.
The Nazis
bless them. That
are the enemy.
By young men, I'm talking like
wade into them,
30-year-olds,
spill their blood, shoot them in the belly.
Because they know
when you put your hand
them, because they're self-aware
into a bunch of goo that a moment before was your best friend's face.
We're just trying to give them the tools to succeed in real life.
You know what to do.
Not in academic life, not in like make-believe life, not in like video
Now,
game
there's another
life,
thing I want
but
you to remember.
Real life. And so that's
I don't want to get any
Appetition Strong
messages
is. It's a mental
saying that we are
program for
holding our
boys,
position.
High school years up into 30.
We're not holding anything.
And,
Let the Hun do that.
and
We are advancing constantly, and we're not interested in holding on to anything except the enemy. We're going to hold on to him by the nose, and we're going to kick him in the ass. We're going to kick the hell out of him all the time, and we're going to go through him like crap through a goose.
Would I be more happy or less happy? Or equally happy?
Yeah, I think you'd be equally happy with whatever they decide to do.
Whatever
As long as
they
it's
want to
productive,
do.
right?
Uh-huh.
There's one thing
Yeah, you know what's funny
that you
is,
men
you know,
will be
you
able to
talk about
say
young men who
when you
at
get back
least have
home.
the awareness to
And you may thank God
try
for
to
it.
find some help to get these skills. I actually have a lot of
30
women
years from now, when
who
you're
are
sitting around your
raising
fireside
boys on their own,
with your
Dad,
grandson on your
parents,
knee,
picture, and I'm amazed at how often I
and
hear
he asks
stories from
you,
women who say,
what did you do
"I really
in the
like
Great
what you're
World
doing
War
because I got
II?
3 boys at home and Dad's not around. And
You
I
won't
love
have to
my
say,
boys." Like these young men need this
Well,
outlet and multiple outlets to be able to.
I
get
shoveled
these
shit
skills
in
and
Louisiana.
mindsets that they're just not going to learn anywhere else. It's just not available to them.
Yeah. They have to do
All
it.
right, now you sons of bitches,
Before I went into the military, my dream was to
you
be
know how I feel.
a profiler for the FBI.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I want to be Clarence
Oh.
Starling from
Yeah,
Silence of the
yeah.
Lambs. That was my dream.
I
so
will
I
be
spent
proud
time, like my undergraduate and then starting graduate
to
school
lead you
was
wonderful
in
guys into
college.
battle
That's what I wanted to do.
anytime.
And so I got to interview a whole bunch. I mean, even guys
Anywhere.
from Charles Manson's
Oh, really?
team.
Yeah.
I got to interview some.
That's all.
people, one of which was in the penitentiary in San Luis Obispo, California. So that was frightening.
Wow.
But I got to interview and talk to these guys, and I was profiling. This was before the active shooter thing started, and looking at a lot of serial killers, you see lack of father figure in their life, and then you get to the current day active shooter, which is, in my opinion, the current day serial killer.
Sure.
And then you look at
All
them
at once, right? Just mass casualties as quick as possible.
and you see the same thing. You see a lack of masculinity. When I say masculinity, not in the, I do think there is forms of toxic masculinity, but when I say masculinity, I think it's a beautiful, compassionate, ethical, powerful thing that a man is supposed to have. And when you're raising a young man, they're supposed to see examples of that. And when that's missing, they don't know what to do. They're going to have that in them anyways. But if it's not channeled and directed properly, it becomes very dangerous.
Sure.
And especially when you try to medicate it or you're trying to direct it in unhealthy ways.
Yeah. And we don't know, like, a lot of these drugs, you know, you talk about going back to school and duct taping you, you know, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, so let's duct tape you to the chair, and then let's just pump you full of medication to sedate you. But I don't think there's been enough research to really try to identify what that does physiologically to a young man who may just have a lot of energy. There's nothing mentally wrong with that individual.
No, there's nothing wrong with me. There was nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with my son. But I'll tell you what.
Is he like you?
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen The Last of the Mohicans?
Yeah, of course.
So you remember the beginning where they're playing lacrosse in the front yard?
Yeah.
And
all of them were playing. And
yeah,
sure.
they're playing sticks that they had hand woven, and the hair was down to their, but like vascular, veiny, muscly, just raw little
wild
savages.
men. I call
wild.
them.
Yeah. Man, if you threw him outside right now, and that's all he'd look like. In minutes, his hair would be matted with sweat, and he'd have bug bites all over his body because he'd be crawling through an anthill and just to see what happens, and he'd be covered in mud, and that's just a Thursday.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty. It's pretty fun to see. Well, it's interesting to see the differences, just innate differences between young men and young women. You know, we talked about the differences in our sons and daughters, and those are my sons. That's how they behave.
Mm-hmm.
That's my daughter. That's how she behaves.
Yeah.
I didn't teach them
No.
to do. I didn't teach my daughter to be kind and loving and nurturing and empathetic and to have dolls and build, you know, little bunk beds or cribs. I didn't teach her how to do that, and I didn't teach my boys how to go out and be that wild man.
Yeah. Nor do I encourage either behavior. You know, it's like, okay, here's the fire truck for you, son. Merry Christmas.
Right. This is a boy's toy.
Yeah.
Like, they know.
Here's your cute little doll that has like a rainbow and a unicorn as her pet. You know, like, there you go, little girl. There's your toy. You know, like, if you walk them into Target and you walk down like the Boy Avenger aisle with Nerf guns, you know, the 1-year-old's like, this is so stupid. You go 2 aisles over into like the tea set thing, and she's like losing her mind, and she's trying to grab everything off of every
one.
Yeah,
they know it, right?
Yeah, there was like, and all she has is a little brother to gauge that off of, and she has zero interest.
I'm not doing that.
No, I don't want. This looks stupid.
Yeah, this is stupid. Oh, boys, like my daughter will say, boys. Oh, boys. She's 7. You know, you said you were talking about toxic masculinity. I'm really curious when you say you believe there are forms of toxic masculinity. I'd like to talk about that.
And so, a man that first of all, it was like yank his balls out and shove them down his throat. I mean, that violence and power and strength, those are forms of masculinity, right? And directed in the positive, in a just way, those are powerful tools for good.
Yeah, I mean, I look at you, right? You have that aggression, you have that ability to be dominant, physicality, of course, and it's directed towards appropriate outcomes and pursuits.
But if that is directed at the wrong thing, like hurting a skin color that you don't like, or making sure that that person in that religion that you don't like never gets the job opportunity that they need, or
primogeniture.
Don't tell everyone that this night I'll be gone. Breathing the eternal blue right at the break of morn. Sailing towards the unknown with my crew on the sea. The day that I return, a hero I shall be. A hero I shall be. A hero I shall be. I'm all set to be rebellion. I'm all set to go straight up and I will leave the shore to find what I've been longing for. I'm all set to be rebellion. I'm all set to go straight up and I will leave the shore to find what I've been longing for.
Equality.
I'm all set to be rebellion. I'm all set to go straight up
news networks and
and I
tweeting
will
by
leave
some,
shore
moms
to
against blah blah
find
blah, whatever,
what I've
right?
been
And they're using every single form, every single
I'm all
route.
set to be rebellion. I'm all set to go straight up and I will leave shore.
Which is a beautiful, powerful thing that should be embraced
now,
and should be encouraged.
there's a number of things to consider if you're thinking about performance prediction, and one of them is, to what degree do people vary in terms of their performance capacity. And you might say, well, there's very little performance variability, or you might say there's a tremendous amount of performance variability, or you might say there's an absurd amount of performance variability. And it turns out that the claim that there's an absurd amount of performance variability is the proper claim. IQ is normally distributed, so is conscientiousness, but productivity is distributed along the Pareto distribution, and I'll show you why. And that follows a law called Price's law from someone named Derek DeSola Price, who was studying scientific productivity in the early 1960s. And what he showed was that a vanishingly small proportion of the scientists operating in a given scientific domain produced half the output. And so what you see, and what's happening is that to do really well at a given productive task, which would also include generating money as a proxy for creative productivity, is that you have to be, a bunch of things have to go your way simultaneously. So maybe you have to be really, really smart, you have to be really, really lucky, you have to be really healthy, you have to be really energetic, you have to be really conscientious, you have to be in the right time at the right place. And maybe you also have to have the right social network, right? Like, so it's a lot of things, and each of those are small probability. Each of those are small probabilities, and then if you multiply the small probabilities together, you get an extraordinarily tiny probability. And you have to have all those things functioning before you're going to end out on the extreme end of the productivity distribution. But if you do end up there, then you produce almost all of everything. So it's a tiny number of people that produce almost all of everything. That's Price's law. And technically it is, and I mentioned this to you before, it's the square root law. The square root of the number of people in a productive domain produce half the output. Right? So if you have 10 employees, 3 of them produce half the output. If you have 100, 10 of them produce half the output. If you have 10,000, 100 of them produce half the productive output. And so what that also means is that because there's massive variability in performance, you don't have to shift your ability to predict performance very much up towards being better at it to gain substantially on the positive side, because there's so much difference in productivity. And that actually happens to be also a function of the complexity of the job. If the job is simple, which means this job has 10 rules, you know, maybe that's a janitorial job, let's say. You know, it takes a little while to learn it, but once you've learned it, you basically do the same thing all the time. There's not a lot of performance variability in those jobs, and most of that would be eaten up by conscientiousness.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, Tim. It's just not going to happen.
No, but you look really good today. No, so are you originally from this area?
Yeah.
No, are you going to be in town long? No, not interested?
No.
Okay, fine.
No, screw off, right? Yeah, of course.
You have like 2 minutes.
It'll predict how fast you learn the tasks initially, but not how well you perform the tasks. But if the tasks you're doing are shifting constantly, so your responsibilities change, or you're in a creative job where you're constantly solving new problems, those are kind of the same thing, then IQ, as the complexity of the job increases, the predictive utility of IQ increases, which is only to say that smarter people can handle complex situations faster. It's like, that doesn't seem like a particularly radical claim. So Price's law dictates that there's massive individual productivity differences between people, so increasing your capacity for predicting performance even by small increments has a huge economic consequence. That was established in the 1990s. The equations were first developed in the 1990s, and that's part of the reason that I started working on performance prediction tests, because I read the economics and I thought, oh my God, you can produce a test that costs $30 times, say maybe you have 50 applicants for the position, $1,500 to administer, and it'll produce increments of something like 30% of salary permanently for the person that you put in the position. So let's say you hire a $75,000 employee, and it increases their productivity by 30%, so we'll say roughly $25,000. You get a $25,000 return on a $1,500 investment every single year that person occupies the position. On average, that's 4 years. That's a $100,000 payoff for your $1,500 investment. I read that and I thought, oh, that'll be easy to sell. It's like, wrong. Even though the economic payoff was so massive. I told you the other impediments that emerged, but the arithmetic or the capacity to produce these calculations was established in the 1990s, and I'll show you the equations in a bit here. Okay, so we already talked about what a normal distribution looks like. That's the red line. And a normal distribution emerges as a consequence of chance processes. So we'll take a look at those here. All right, so here's a Pareto distribution. This is the distribution. Remember I showed you with the creative achievement questionnaire that almost everybody stacked up at 0? People have 0 creative output. The median person has 0 lifetime creative output. And then there's a tiny proportion that are way the hell out on the right-hand end of the distribution, right? Those are the people everything is cycling forward for them. And as they get more well-known, of course, they get more opportunities as well. So I'll just run this simulation for you, okay? And this.
I don't care anything of that. I care about capability and lethality of that unit. Nothing else matters.
Why does this narrative get pushed? And also, how do we begin to paint the right narrative, which is let's make sure the mission is accomplished. Let's make sure Americans are safe and prosperous. Let's make sure we can keep the bad guys at bay.
Yeah. I just want to take all 350 million Americans and have them travel with me.
They need to see it and feel it, experience it
firsthand.
Sure. Yeah.
And when you can smell it, and you can smell it forever. You can smell the smell of a burning body for the rest of your life. And and I want them to smell it. And they can shut their face about what they think they want us to
do. Do you think, what's your thought about some sort of mandatory service or something like that?
I don't like it. I love that we have an all-volunteer military. And I think we have a more capable military than we have ever had in the history of mankind. And I would love that between, 17 and 20, you have to do something for your country, but military service can't be it.
What do you think are the issues that you might run across if that
Masquerade.
Well, one, combat arms has to be always volunteer.
Because of the difficulty or the demand, or what is it about?
Having worked with conscripts abroad, where people were forced into the military by their governments, and then me taking a machine gun and shooting at their feet. The bad guys are that way. We have to go that way. And they're like,
we're going this other way.
We're going this other way. I'm like, they're gonna kill you. They might kill you. I will kill you. You run that way, or I'm gonna shoot you. Again, another opportunity where I wish I could bring 350 million Americans and be like, here you go. You want to see what this looks like? It's really dark.
Well, and it takes a special kind of person. I mean, I was in the military for a little bit, obviously nothing to the degree that you are, and I've been able to talk with you and other guys who are at elite levels, and, I mean, let's be honest, you guys are different, you got dark humor, you got twisted humor and stories, and your personalities are extreme. I mean, I'm speaking in broad generalities, but I think that's a pretty safe thing to say. It's pretty accurate.
Those are all
representation. Accurate. So, I don't think you're going to get that from the majority of the population.
No.
Because everybody just wants to put their head on their pillow and just none of this happens.
And that's why I like having the volunteer service, because when somebody volunteers to go into the military, and then they volunteer to be combat arms, and then they volunteer to go to airborne school, and they volunteer to go to special forces selection, and then they volunteer to go to the ODA. I'm 5 volunteers in. Do you know what kind of person I have there?
Somebody who's
committed.
That's a good word. Committed. They can really handle this.
And I'll take a committed, malleable anybody over a forced, perfect Adonis. If I have the drive and the will to see something to the end, especially to that degree, but then you're you could hand me that kind of fat, and this never happens because by that point that person's already a shaped, Hercules-looking person.
Of course.
But that person that has the thing in here, what was that? It was Captain America. Remember, they took the weak,
right?
And he jumped on top of that grenade, and they're like, "That's the guy we want." Because it was in here. The strength was inside of here. I can teach anybody to do this.
You can mold all that other stuff.
Yeah, I can teach people 7-8. I can show them how to do combat arms. But I can't give you the will to face the fear of war.
Do you think we can create through fatherhood, through mentorship programs like you're doing with Apogee, do you think you can create and foster that?
Yes.
More in people?
Absolutely.
Or is that an innate thing when you're born?
It is not born. No. Maybe some guys.
Sure,
I'm not saying Patton didn't drop out of that. Out the uterus. Here we go from the womb. All right, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go conquer General Rommel. You suck. Let me show you how we do this. You know, like
it's an environmental thing, is what you're saying.
you look at the Luttrell brothers, you know, and you look at guys that I grew up with in San Luis Obispo County in like this really rural kind of country folk area of California on the coast. I can't tell you how many Green Berets came from this tiny that tiny little, because it was like we were tough, we fought, we rode motorcycles, we hopped, we surfed, we swam in the ocean, and it was just like we hunted, and it was just like normal. All of these things that are extraordinary to other places, and this environment fostered, cultured these young men. I didn't know any of these guys until we got here. And I'm like, Justin Lincoln? You're from San Luis Obispo?
Exactly.
You know, Ashley Mariana? You're from here? You know, like name after name after name of all of these guys. And we're 1 year apart in school, or they're like just one school over. And it was just an environment that was curated. It wasn't curated, it was created to be able to. So yes, I know for a fact
Nobility.
that you can create leaders, that you can create the will.
With you and how many opportunities are present, whether it's the school and these programs and courses
Noblesse
that you run,
oblige.
Sheepdog, and everything that you have going on, how do you take that level of busyness and then filter and decide, this is worth my time and attention, this is worth my energy, this will move me closer to my mission, what I want to accomplish, this won't? How do you measure all of that?
So the first thing is I take the mission and the end state. So I know what my mission is, and
what is your mission?
To preserve and protect human life. And so as a force multiplier, if that's my mission, here's my end state. What are the things that I need to do, and how do I spend my time, and how do I allocate my time strategically to be able to make that mission reach its end state, see it to fruition? So the lens that I view everything through, time is the commodity that I distribute into efforts to see that happen. Whether that's Sheepdog Response, that's Apogee Strong, that's Apogee Cedar Park. All of my time is dedicated to seeing that end state be realized.
Are there things where you've gone down a path because you did this analysis and then realized, you know what? I got to back out from that because that's not actually going to be the best use of my time.
For sure.
And how do you make those decisions, and how quickly, or how much time and effort do you try to revitalize them? And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, how do you decide on that?
Yeah. So even in the military, we have failure lines where if we have not accomplished this thing at this point, the cost is going to be too much for us to try. And again, the Titanic, when you look at that iceberg in front of you and it's right there and you're like, turn the ship hard to port,
Yeah.
It's too late.
Right.
You're still going to hit it.
Yeah,
right.
You're done.
So that point, if you just use that metaphor, if we look at the ocean, at what point, even dedicating 100% of time and commitment at this line, I'm still going to hit that iceberg. It's still not going to generate the result that I need. Okay, I'm going to move that line further. So then mentally, this is where my line is.
Okay.
And if at this threshold, this amount of the commodity of time I'm dedicating and I can't dedicate more, doesn't give me the end result, I have to abandon.
Do you feel like when that situation arises that you failed, and then
wolves and sheepdogs?
How does that impact you psychologically?
Some people prefer to believe that evil doesn't exist in the world, and if ever darkened their doorstep, they wouldn't know how to protect themselves. Those are the sheep. And then you got predators. They use violence to prey on the weak. They're the wolves. And then there are those who've been blessed with the gift of aggression and the overpowering need to protect the flock. These men are the rare breed.
So if you go into yellow, 81%, you're failing.
Right.
They are
It's
the
not- 'cause
sheepdog.
that's not your objective.
My objective was to stay at 79% or lower.
And we're not raising any sheep in this
in
family.
that 5,000 meters, I had 20 minutes to do it.
I will whoop your ass if you
Well,
turn
it took
into a
me
wolf.
20 minutes and 38 seconds, and I was right at that 78, 79, 90%
But we
of the time,
protect our
but I
own.
hit yellow twice. So,
If someone tries to fight you,
man, mission
or
failed.
tries to bully your little brother,
I'm going to do it better.
you have my permission to finish it.
There's nothing wrong with
The
that.
guy was picking on
Failure
Jeff.
provides an opportunity for growth.
Is that
So
true?
even we'll use exercise
Yes,
again.
sir.
Like if
Yes,
I
he
go,
was.
I just destroyed.
Did you finish it?
I've seen that, yeah.
Kind of bummer.
I was gonna say we should get a roll in, but I'm like,
Then you know who you are.
We're still good to roll. Okay, so I wish I would have known that. I should have known that actually. Like, I'll still roll.
Yeah. So I'm like setting new goals. Bench press. I've never done bench press in my life. I have no idea what my bench press is. So, okay, I want to have like a 325 bench press. So I did a 5 rep max last week, and I jumped up a weight, and then I failed. I was like, that sucked. You know, I was at whatever 355, 365 for 5 RM, and then I did it today. Little humble brag.
Yeah.
But if I failed last week, could I have, if I didn't fail last week, would I have been able to accomplish it today?
No, of course not.
No. So what's wrong with failure?
Well, let me throw this out there, because in this instance, you know, that impacts you, right? I guess indirectly would affect other people because you're worried about being strong and your mission. I think where people get hung up with failure is if you let other people down. Like, I don't put food on the table, or I don't, to going back to our earlier conversation about starting a business.
Yeah.
You know, if I leave, my wife and children are depending on me.
Yeah.
You know, and there's some instances where actually failure is not an option.
Yeah. So I have 7 profitable, successful businesses right now. Do you not think I've failed at business?
Yeah, of course you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure.
I have.
Yeah,
right?
I'm sure.
Like catastrophically humiliated myself and my incredibly brilliant wife, who's like, really? You're going to do what again with this money? You know, I was like, oh, it's going to work.
This time.
This time. And so.
Why does she believe in you?
That will, that's in there. Like if I wasn't a 220-pound hairy troll ogre that, you know, you're going to blow up and even with a busted knee, you and your 19 friends are going to have one hell of a fight on your hands. You're going to try to put me in the dirt, you know? Because like there's not a quit inside of here.
She sees that.
She knows that.
Yeah.
You know, she's like, think about me coming home from fights, UFC main event fights.
I can't imagine that.
Eyes swollen closed. I can't even move my hands because they're so swollen after hitting Bisbing for 25 minutes, 300 and something times, you know, and or blowing my knee out and having my eyes swollen closed, and after fighting Yoel Romero. And she's like, you know, do you want me to get you some Tylenol or like a bottle of bourbon, you know?
Yeah, something,
you know?
anything.
Like, no. I want to feel every moment of this pain.
Is that the right word? You like it or what?
I need to know it and I need to remember it.
So it pushes you to do something different next time?
Like, I don't want to forget about failure. I don't want to dilute the pain of failure and, you know, or even worse, like try to drink it away or take pills and I need the acute, sharp suffering that goes along with the humiliating face of failure. And if I could bottle that, I'd drink that, because that is going to ensure future success.
Interesting. What is it like getting into that ring? You know, it's so foreign to me. Is like, I'm going to make a living and a career in getting in a metal cage, almost naked, with another man who wants to hurt you as bad as you want to hurt him. Why?
I don't know where, I mean, I want to know where I fail. Am I the best? Am I not the best? Am I the strongest? Am I not the strongest? Am I the fastest? Am I not the fastest? These are questions that have been asked in mankind since the beginning of mankind.
Of course, that's why we compete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't we? And because of that competition, some of the greatest accomplishments in mankind, the arms race, as horrible as it was, it's pretty cool. Got us the MRI, you know? Do you think that our ability to record as we're doing right now, where did that come from?
Right, yeah. All of these things would have been greatly diminished. Yeah, of course.
And radio communication and sonar, all of that came from competition, man competition, to see who and what is going to be the predominant successful ideology. So as simple as it is of who is the fastest person or who has the greatest ideas or what country's the greatest, Greeks, Romans, Genghis Khan, here we are with an ever-improving society, and we wouldn't have that with competition.
That's interesting.
On the individual and the collective.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, this has been fascinating.
Fun.
Yeah, for sure. I love asking these questions. I mean, when I started this 6 years ago, just my desire to like sit down with guys like you and have these conversations and figure out what makes you tick. The whole goal is to make me and the people listening better. So you certainly give us a lot to think about.
I got a lot to think about.
We all do. We need to think a little bit more and act a little bit more too.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Tim, I know you're busy. You're about to travel here, so we'll wrap it up. But again, thanks for the invite into your home. Thanks for sitting down with us. Appreciate you, man.
Pleasure, man.
All right.
Take care.